Whakataka te ho ki te uru, whakataka te ho ki te tonga, kia makina kina ki uta, kia matara tara ki tai. Ehi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu, tihe mauri ora. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's council meeting. I'd like to just begin by confirming the logistics for some of the items on the agenda. Due to the shorter time that's been allocated for today's meeting, due to obligations a number of us had this morning, we'll be reconvening the meeting to next Wednesday, or adjourning the meeting to next Wednesday, the 3rd of August at 9 a.m. The Deputy Mayor will chair this as I will be away. The two items we intend to deal with on the 3rd, item 22, the fortnightly staff presentation on the Christchurch Wastewater Treatment Plant, and item 23, the Christchurch Wastewater Treatment Plant update on community wellbeing response workstream. That is an optimistic consideration of the amount of work that we have in front of us. But I think that it's a reasonable assessment that within the 5 hours that we have available to us, that we could make it through all of the items on the agenda apart from those two. But if there are other items that need to be dealt with, because we have CCHL representatives coming here, I'll deal with that item and the PX items after at the end of this meeting, before I adjourn the meeting until next Wednesday at 9 a.m. So I hope that that's fine. And so now I will move to apologies, and at the close of play I had no apologies, but we have Andrew Turner, Catherine Chu, Melanie Coker and Celeste Donovan zooming into the meeting today. So there's no apologies to be received. The declarations of interest are numerous and all relate to appointments that we individually hold as council nominees to various entities. So Councillor Galloway on item 10, Turner and Davidson on item 14, Scandrett on 14, Chen on 14 and 18, Turner on item 14, Councillors McDonald, Goff and Major on item 14 relating to civic buildings. Sorry, I should say which ones. Councillor Major on item 14 relating to trans waste, and then the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Councillors Goff and Templeton on item 15, which is CCHL. So, so they are all noted for the record. Any other conflicts that may arise, do let me know during the course of the meeting. And now we move on to public participation, and we have two items of public presentation, and I'd just really like to welcome Tameth Vijay Singhith and invite him to come and make a speech. The speech, as I understand, you delivered to the National Race Unity Speech Awards, where you were the regional winner for Canterbury. It's a great pleasure to be able to welcome you to make your presentation to the council today. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you all. My name is Timothy, not Tim. I remember from my tennis coach, I was always Tim. I wanted to let him know, but I didn't have the courage to raise my hand and tell him, my name is Timothy. That was the end of that tennis club. Mum pulled me out, thinking it would catch on. Calling me by the right name is so important to me. On another occasion, I was walking my dog. A car horned at me to get my attention. They rolled down the window and someone yelled, "Go back to where you came from." I've experienced those microaggressions, the undercurrent of racist and implicit biases that underpin our social interactions. Despite being born and bred in Aotearoa, racism is not something I heard happen to a person I know. It's not something I read in the news or watched on TV. It's happened to me firsthand. Our ancestors of long ago saw difference as a threat. A response was triggered, evolution occurred, and yet here we are, thousands of years later, still feeling threatened by those same differences. It's high time we got to know each other. Let's look at the hand. All 5 fingers are different from each other, but collectively, they make up the perfectly functioning hand. In society, each and every one of us, like each finger, is different. I'm a Sri Lankan New Zealander. You may be Māori, Pākehā, Asian, but by working together, like the fingers of one hand, we too can achieve harmony if we try. So how do we do it? Don't get me wrong, change is happening. We celebrate Diwali, Ramadan, the Chinese New Year, Christmas, and recently for the first time, Matariki. The Māori New Year was celebrated with a national holiday. Isn't that beautiful? Not only does this put a culture that may be different to our own to the forefront, but it drives exposure. New Zealand's history and te reo Māori are set to be made compulsory in primary schools. These changes are being embraced and welcomed, but more can still be done. I want to see attitudes represented in institutions. Each finger, despite their differences, must have equitable opportunity to flourish and space to grow so that they can function well. At the institutional level, there are differences in need that stem from institutionalized racism. For example, Otago University recognizes these differences and rectifies them through a mirror on society policy that promotes Māori and Pacifica representation in healthcare so that their health outcomes are closer to being equitable with the general population. This type of policy needs to become the norm. For that reason, I propose a race right register, whereby organisations show their active commitment for kotahitanga and racial equity to become eligible. This encourages other organisations to follow suit. Prospective employees are attracted to race right organisations, and it's a win-win situation for all. Let's make colour-brave communities. Uguruta hora behet bona be. A Sinhalese whakatauki. Loosely translates to, one cannot fix a problem by simply looking away from it. There's this idea that in order to fight racism, we must be colour-blind and overlook the colour of someone's skin. As much as we like to believe we're born equal, we're not. Sown through those deeply rooted seeds of colonialism, sections of society still trail behind the rest. Now, by being blind to a person's ethnicity, we erase that racialized experience. So if we're blind to the fact that each of us start at a different point on the starting line, the gaps only grow wider. So I urge you, not to be colour-blind, but to be colour-brave. Being colour-brave means not being afraid to be curious and not being offended when someone chooses an interest in your culture. It can be as simple as asking me about how to cook a curry. In fact, I'll even bring you a whole feast. We can instill colour bravery in our communities through more visible race buddy initiatives, backed by local council, whereby whānau and rangatahi choose a culture different from their own and form friendships. This promotes exchanges that are grounded in mutual respect, consent, and participation. And to minorities, no, we cannot be gatekeepers We must champion our cultures and become educators for all. If your white friend wants to wear an Indian sari, educate her on its significance and welcome it. It is cultural appreciation. Cherish cross-cultural relationships, as they can only be good for society and promote racial harmony. I want to see everyone playing their part. One finger can hold little weight, but 5 are much stronger. When our hands are in our pockets, they're of no use. They're hidden and powerless. So take them out, raise them up, and see the beauty in difference, strength, and functionality. We are interdependent. Ka ora pe au ia koe, ka ora koe ia au. A Māori whakatauki. Perhaps I survive because of you, and you because of me. So let my issues be your issues too. Let us stand hand in hand for our issues, whether they be Māori, Pākehā, Asian, all supporting each other. Because issues faced alone are tough, but issues faced together are halved. We're all here to live meaningful lives, which are over that barrier of racial inequity. To climb this barrier for a fair shot, which everyone deserves, each and every one of us has different needs. So for those with more need, let's put a box under them so that they can climb this barrier more easily. Some may need 2, so give them 2. In the end, let that view of opportunity be seen by all, no matter what race. Because only harmoniously, like the fingers of one hand, can we conquer this barrier of racial inequity and cross into that view of racial equity. Kia ora.
Timmy, before you go, I just want to say on behalf of all of the councillors, thank you. You've reminded us just how important these issues are. I wrote down colour brave, not colour blind. I haven't heard that expression before. So I know that everyone around the table, and you heard it reflected in the applause, which was shared in the audience as well, that you are brave and you have invited us to be brave too. So thank you so much for your presentation. It was probably one of the best presentations that we've received. So thank you very much for going to all of that trouble and effort to bring it here to this room. Thank you. No. Thank you. I think Councillor Chen will be in touch with you about perhaps an opportunity to meet with our Multicultural Advisory Committee so that we can actually take it a step further. So thank you very much. Next is Don Gould. Oh, sorry, I was wondering where you were, if you were there. Far away.
Good morning. I think we're going to, Councillor Chen, I think we're going to see that young man sitting in your chair, and Ms. Dazile, I think he'll be sitting in your chair before we're done. He was outstanding.
I think he might have higher ambitions than that.
This may be true too. Good morning. I seem to be back talking about yet another crisis related to water this morning. This time we're calling it stormwater crisis. This is the damn table, folks. This is the table that as a member of the public you come to sit at to actually express the issues. And this morning I'd like to speak out to the social media community as well, and the wider community that are watching on our live streams and will watch this video in the playback. Because if you want to get stuff done in council, this is where you come and sit and air your issue, like I am this morning, yet again. This issue has lit up across social media. There's been a bit of stone throwing in the radio. There's been all sorts of things. If you want to get it changed, though, members of the public, this is where we need to show up. I noticed this morning we have a contingent of people who are interested in climate issues behind us. Fantastic. Thanks for showing up to support my campaign. I'm sure you knew that's why I was here this morning. My concerns, we've got some cycleways that have been built, a $363 million project, I believe, which is undermined by a bit of stormwater that we haven't got rid of. We've had paper after paper about environmental issues. We've talked about shopping local, go local, and I've made that change. That is a photo of the meat sitting in my freezer last night. Bought local from a place that I can walk or cycle to, and this week I can do neither because of the flooding in that area. We've talked about we're going to get to the point where climate change will bring us to a point where there's going to be high tides, high rains, whatever. We are there. We are here now. We're not getting there. We're here. Edgware Village paper and issues. There's some great papers floating around that were released earlier in the week, which have got some design answers to fix the problem so I can get back into my local butcher or at least provide some remediation. I would call on you all and urge you to stop using these things as political footballs running into an election, but actually get on and support the community by actually making that building accessible every day of the year. Talking of accessibility, I understand one of the projects is to raise the footpath, which would mean you'd have to step down into the building. And then the question comes up, if we do that, who pays for the remediation on the inside of the building? Well, these guys are providing low-cost meat to me and my community, so that cost needs to come back on me. And the way that cost comes back on me is via the council, which is you, because you collect it from all of us and then you guys should remediate it, which is why I've made that point there. It's not about budgets. It's not about whether it's in the LTP allocations. It's not about whether there's an agenda item for it. It's about the fact I can't walk into the damn shop. I can't walk down to a bunch of local shops down there right now unless I've got 3-foot waders on. It's ridiculous. My request, put the damn paper on the table today. With respect, I understand that's not practical, but I'm still putting the request out there. Prove to Wellington that this is the best council in the country, because it is, and we can actually manage our resources because we actually can, and prove it to me, your community. Pull the unrequired junk off the table. I keep saying that, ironically. That wastewater stuff is off the table today and pushed forward. That would have actually been my call, because I had liked to also commend the amazing job that staff have done to address the communications and problems in that community. That job is done. There is a community group now behind that, actually being involved, watching it like a hawk. So that means elected members can now move on to the next crisis and get that sorted out. And with that, that's me.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and it's, as usual, much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Leanne.
Thank you. The next one is a presentation of petitions, of which there are none, so I'll move to the resolution to include supplementary reports in the meeting, and I shall move that. Do I have a seconder for that? Sarah Templeton. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That is carried. The next item of the minutes, but it's an opportunity for a presentation in person from Te Tira Kahiku and Chrissy Williams, the chairperson, to come forward and present to us. Thank you. Kia ora, Chrissy, and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. So, a 3-monthly update on what Te Tira Kahiku's been up to. And you'll see by reading the report that you have in the minutes attached that things are really quite quiet for us. We didn't have a meeting in June because there were no items to consider. And we're having fewer and fewer applications for new transitional land uses going through to LINZ, which is understandable because they're restricted to being 6 months only, and also the land's in progress of being handed over to council. So many groups want to do things in the red zone, but they just know it's probably not worthwhile for them to make application at this stage. So you'll see that we've had a number of renewals and extensions and variations to current leases and licences, and that's so that the groups can continue in doing what they're doing. And the other thing that we'd have at our meetings is a really thorough and really helpful update from both LINZ and City Council staff on what's happening, particularly on council projects, because they're not part of our purview, but they obviously link with any activities that people are wanting transitional uses for. So just thinking ahead, I understand that there's a paper on the co-governance entity that's progressing, and you'll hopefully get a paper in a meeting next month. But just some things to think about when you consider that paper. One is, what's the role of Te Tira ka Hiku Hiku as that group forms? Do we continue in parallel for a while that group gets established and understands how it's going to make its own decisions and recommendations or decisions on licenses and leases or land uses? And I think it's really important to acknowledge that the group wants to stay strong to that point. A couple of times we've struggled to get a quorum, so there's I think there's a feeling in the group that we're not contributing that much, but I think we need to value our group and just acknowledge the work they're doing, so that the transition is deliberate and that we don't just peter out. So if you could respect that when you think about the co-governance paper you'll get. As land's handed over to council, and it's happening, and LINZ would be completed by the end of the year. We will hope that will be the case. But as the land is in council ownership, the leases and licences existing on that land is rolling over. And so that still creates further uncertainty for the groups on there. They don't know how long their leases will continue. So we do need the co-governance group to get up and running reasonably quickly and to make some decisions about those current leases and licences. And it's important to do it, and important to consider those, because the way that LINZ made the decisions to allow those uses I think will be different for council. You've got different policies, different things guiding you. So it's, in my view, it shouldn't just be a rollover or automatic renewal of those leases. They need to be thoughtful and considered under all of council's policies. So that's something for the co-governance group to think of. And then the co-governance group needs to think how they're going to make their decisions, particularly for the long-term uses and some of the bigger projects that are sort of sitting in the wings waiting for them. So the sort of that two phases is what we're currently doing, which feels pretty light, but the interest of TTK in what's going to happen in the future. So that's pretty much it, Madam Mayor, and I've got a long day, so happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Chrissy? Yanni.
Thank you. Just interested, in the temporary land use application, the tree planting. So where that planting took place, obviously planting the trees is a permanent activity. So is that sort of in the plan already? So there's no risk of
that land's already been handed over to council. So council, I think Dave. Yep. No, okay, so there was also council applied. Okay, council applied to LINZ for a lease for that land as well at the same time, but because it was a council application, that's not considered by TTK. So you're seeing half of the process here. Okay. The other half was a direct application from council to LINZ to have that land.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is, planting 5,000 permanent trees, which I totally support. How is that transitional? And if we are able to sort of make some of those calls, are we able to do that for some of the other places like the Richmond Community Garden Trust as well, to give groups more certainty?
Well, because council, it's happened all over the place. There's been a lot of leases, and LINZ puts on a condition that there's to be no permanent planting and things, but we know it's happening. So So that, again, that's something that needs to be considered. I mean, Richmond Community Garden is a different activity, but from an ecological restoration, which is a permitted activity, and particularly in the green spine. It's those kind of things, Yanni, I've been talking about, that needs to be some deliberative thinking about what can continue, what doesn't continue, are they in the appropriate place?
Well, that's what concerns me, that these are happening ahead of having that in that group.
Thanks, Councillor.
Yeah, no, I too wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing, and it's a very timely reminder of the importance of getting the transition to the transition right as well. I think you've started to engage with staff about that, and we'll continue to engage with you on it so that we can address these issues. I think there is an intention to bring the paper establishing the establishment co-governance group together. So we have names that just need to be discussed with the individuals concerned, and then it will come to council. So hopefully that's sooner rather than later.
That's what I understand with Lydia.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation today, and I'd like to move that we receive the minutes, seconded by Pauline. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That is carried. Thank you very much. And Jimmy, would you like to move the Multicultural Committee minutes? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Tim Scandrett. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And now we move on to the notice of motion that has been submitted by Councillor Yanni Johansson. So I'll hand over to Councillor Johansson to introduce the notice of motion.
Yeah, thank you. And I've just sent councillors some photos. I don't know if staff can put the photos on the screen, or is that going to be too tricky? I'll just speak to the notice of motion, which is effectively, as councillors may be aware, the rural land in the Kenaway farm site between Tunnel Road, Ferry Road and the Heathcote-Apawaho River was rezoned into industrial as part of a plan change prior to the earthquake in 2010. And since that time, there's been a number of activities that have happened, but quite surprisingly to local residents was the emergence of a number of shipping containers, a shipping container storage depot in effect, that has had a huge amount of disruption on the visual amenity, on being able to sleep in terms of noise and vibration, and also concern around the environmental impacts. And you can see a photo that pretty much sums up the concern that people are expressing when they wake up and see that basically blocking the entire view of the Port Hills. But really today, I'm simply seeking council to agree to the notice of motion that effectively asks to get an advice or report from council staff over what could be done in terms of district plan changes. And it's just effectively the reason for doing that is it seems apparent to me that this was probably a type of activity that wasn't really anticipated. And it may be that having a greater degree of buffer between residential and this sort of activity is important. And therefore, it would be good to get advice on what could be done. This is, just at a recent council meeting, we adopted the Lower Heathcote Guidance Plan, and you can see through here wonderful views of the Port Hills and recommendations looking at examining land use along the Lower Heathcote Apawaho River in terms of planning control. So I urge councillors to support this today. This is simply seeking to get this issue on the work program of our staff so that we can look at what could possibly mitigate some of the concerns that have been raised by local residents. And again, just to note, I've sent you two two of the residents who have sent pretty detailed information about the impact that it's having on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Jake McClellan. Any questions for the person who's moved the motion? Questions of clarification only. Tim and then Aaron.
Thanks, Yanni. With the second email, or the first email you sent through with regards to a wee bit of information attached to the photo, the one of the concerns isn't just visual, it's also noise. What are the what are the work restrictions on the Kenaway Business Park? Do you know?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because there's controls around noise limits at certain times of the day, and I do have some information that staff have sent through on that. But fair to say it's fairly permissive, and one of the issues is it's the vibration from the containers being dropped or loaded, I should say, as much as a really loud noise. So it's the shaking and the vibration. But I can send that through to you. There is some controls, but I guess the point of asking the advice from staff is, are those controls sufficient enough to mitigate the effects that it has on people, particularly in a residential area? The other thing to note is that some of the area that is in close proximity is rezoned medium residential, so it can have more intensive housing being built, and so obviously there's a concern that when you do get more housing, and I think the reverse sensitivity effects have been raised through some of the consultation on the intensification plan change.
Because the inland port, I mean, it's got residencies all around that area, so I'd be interested with the council when we get in front of staff to ask a few questions.
Yep.
Aaron.
Yeah, so just on, because there's the list of all the things there, but that land is industrial land, and as you know, I've got a business around the corner, so I know it relatively well, and they're allowed to build to 20 metres on that site, I thought, which would be, those containers are 12.5 metres high currently, so a building could go beyond even the edge of your photo, which would certainly block views. Isn't that what that area is zoned for?
Yeah, I don't. As I understand it, the staff are looking at what's permitted under the industrial zoning. There is a outline development plan, and for council, I mean, I don't know how familiar councils are with the planning process. The outline development plan gives you a kind of general overview of what's going to be done, but it doesn't go down to the level of detail in terms of subdivision. This site in particular does have an 11-metre height restriction along it, and that was in the outline development plan. But staff are looking at the individual aspects of this case. I guess that the more broader concern is around shipping container storage and the movement, and where you've got shipping container depots, the impact that can have if it's in close proximity to residential. And that's really what it's asking staff to consider, looking at whether we have sufficient protections in our district plan, and it may be that we do, but certainly from the feedback from the local residents in this area, they were quite shocked to not have any notification, for example, and to just see it sort of appear overnight. So, yeah.
And then my follow-up to that is, so will the report come back, have the environmental implications of, if we don't allow shipping container ports in that particular area, that then like they'd go to Rolleston or wherever that would have.
I'm sure, impact. Yeah, Aaron, I'm sure when staff do district plan, when they provide district plan advice, they do a Section 32 analysis, and that goes through the different benefits from a cultural, environmental, and economic aspect. So, I have no doubt that would be exactly the sort of thing that staff would consider. Again, this is not saying that there should be no shipping container depots. It's just saying, if it's in close proximity to residential, do we have sufficient mitigations in place to deal with the effects that's been created? And that is what I would expect staff to come back with.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Just just your comment then made me a little bit nervous. So you're not expecting staff to do a section 32.
I was just trying to reassure my colleague that as part of any district plan change, staff do go through a process to weigh up the benefits.
I just wonder whether we should.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to have agreement of everyone, but I probably would have worded it as seek advice on whether changes, should be considered to improve the district plan. Because asking for a report and or advice. So I just want to be clear that we're not talking about sort of substantive advice on a plan change proposal. We're talking about them providing some advice on what the council would have to do to consider that and what you would take into account. Because this isn't the top priority for our staff at the moment. The top priority for our staff are the plan changes that we're required to do under the changes to the RMA and the MPSUD. So.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's really just getting staff to look at the existing district planning controls around this sort of activity and to provide advice on whether they're sufficient when it's in close proximity to residential. I think one of the things that I've observed with our district plan, and you can look at Garland's Road as well, the metal scrap activity, is that there does seem to be a bit of an issue with residential adjacent or, in this case, in close proximity. And it may be that we just need to think a little bit more about how we mitigate some of those impacts.
We had exactly the same issue with the quarries and the buffers that are required for residential developments, and we were unsuccessful as a council in trying to get the changes that we wanted to our own district plan. So it's a challenging issue, but thank you. That gives me comfort, and I'm happy to support this. So is there any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That's carried. Sorry, I forgot about the people online. If anyone is outrageously opposed to this online, just let me know. Thank you. Right, so the next item on the agenda is the hearings panel report to the council on the Wheels to Wings Papanui Ki Waiwhetu major cycle route, and staff are here, but I just wanted to present the report as the chair of the hearings panel to begin with. So in presenting the hearings panel report today, I wanted to begin by thanking and acknowledging the panel members, Councillor Mike Davidson, Councillor Aaron Kewen, Waimero Fendleton Waimairi Harewood Community Board Member Jason Middlemiss, and Waipapa Papanui Innis Community Board Member Emma Norrish. And then I also want to thank and acknowledge staff and the project team for their efforts and for the extensive amount of information provided. Staff have worked directly with businesses and residents along the route to try and find solutions to their concerns. Over 70 changes have been made to the design since the first round of consultation. Staff have and will continue to work with those directly impacted through the detailed design process should this be approved today. It has been an extensive process involving 2 rounds of consultation, various delays due to COVID restrictions, so this really should have been before council sooner, and I think without COVID we would have had this before us earlier. 2 briefings to the hearings panel and both community boards, and a lengthy hearings panel process which commenced in February and finished in April of this year. It shows not only how technical and complex this cycleway scheme design is, but it also emphasised how engaged this community has been, with over 1,300 well-considered submissions having been received. During the hearings, we heard from 70 submitters, which range from local residents and businesses along the route and within the area, users of our major cycleway route network, cycling groups, vehicle and cycle users along Harewood Road, as well as many other residents over Christchurch. We also conducted a site visit along the full route, stopping at various sections to observe the current environment and to observe issues raised in submissions. And I actually found that to be probably the most instructive element of the process, was actually going section by section down the route. Not all of us were on cycles, I should add, but just to hear staff talking about the areas at which there would be conflict potentially with the cycleway route and driveways and various other things. The Nunweek Park issue, for example, some of the tree issues, so and actually watching and observing traffic speeds down Harewood Road and looking at behaviours in terms of fast-moving traffic. So it was I found that really instructive, and it was very engaging, and I think hearings panel members engage with each other and engage with the staff as well, and it was just an excellent process. The decision today is about approving the scheme design for this route, and throughout the process the route was split into 3 main sections. Concerns were raised, the first was the west section from the airport up to Nunweek Boulevard, and that was the one where there was full support of the committee for change. Concerns were raised about the potential loss of parking around Nunweek Park. To address this, we're recommending that staff look at the viability of putting the cycleway on the park side of the trees in Nunweek Park. And I kind of want to thank staff again for sort of reaching out into the wider organisation to sort of just get an assessment of whether that was going to be a possibility before we come to council with this recommendation. The option would allow us to increase the parking around Nunweek Park, as we could then put in angle parking along Harewood Road. And this is an issue for Nunweek Park. There is huge pressure on that park because it's so popular, such a good park. And if we could find a beneficial solution in that regard, it would be a good outcome as well. We also discussed the signalised pedestrian crossing at the Harewood Road School to ensure maximum safety, to allow for a safer crossing point and the planting of some additional trees. The east section, east of Greers Road through to Papanui, that wasn't unanimous support. That was majority support for that one. And in this one, we're recommending a 2-way separated cycleway on the north side of the road. We're also recommending some safety improvements by the entrance and exit to the Mitre 10 store, and we spent a lot of time looking at current behaviour in terms of how cars came out of Mitre 10 across the footpath, a very, very busy intersection. We also asked for staff to investigate building a raised safety platform on Harewood Road at the signalised pedestrian cycle crossing between Matson's Ave and Chapel Street, and to also work with a small business owner to address concerns with drop-off, pick-up and crossing the road with students. It was a business, home-based business that I wasn't aware of in that area. The central section from Nunweek Boulevard to Greers Road was absolutely the most complicated part of the route. And it's a majority decision of the hearings panel to recommend a separated cycleway on each side of the road and a 2-way cycleway on the north side of the road from the Bishopdale roundabout to Greers Road. This section also includes the signalisation of the Harewood Breens intersection and the partial signalisation of the Bishopdale roundabout. Concerns were raised around the reduction of lanes on Harewood Road, but it was really interesting to hear from submitters and from different perspectives that the speed at which that encourages people to drive down Harewood Road is an issue. The reduction of parking was an issue. Concerns with how the Bishopdale roundabout would work. I've had the advantage of seeing one of these kinds of roundabouts that are partially signalised operating in other cities. The impact of residents, impact on residents and businesses. We also heard that this route is a missing link in our cycleway network, and users felt the current speed environment along Harewood Road is too fast and feels unsafe for cyclists. And we saw a video that gave us a very clear impression of that. Note that I guess I want to comment on the community concept design, because as I think I've said to councillors before, it really was presented to us and we thought, great, this is something that the members of the community have come up with. It solves pretty much all the problems, and this is something that we really wanted to look at in great detail. And I guess that it was hugely disappointing to all of us that we received advice through the independent review and through staff that we could not address the safety issues that it would create, and we could not address the fact that that it would make such a major difference to the north side of Harewood Road, where both lanes of traffic would be on the north side of the central median, which would no longer be a median, it would be a separator from an enclosed road with two exit points. And the impact that it would have on the properties on the northern side hadn't been through a submission process. But, you know, honestly, I wanted to absolutely acknowledge the time and the effort that the submitters that put that design together went to in developing the concept and for presenting it in the way that they did. The other key recommendations the panel has put forward align transport projects in the area such as Greers Road, Langdon's Road, Breens Road, Sawyers Arms Road and Northcote Road intersection improvements. What we heard from submitters were the significant flow-on effects that were already putting pressure on different parts of the network in that area, and some high-risk behaviours resulting from intersections that were not fully improved to the extent that we would like to see them improved. Noting that some trees will be retained, and more trees than the original design had suggested, we are asking staff to investigate opportunities for replanting trees dependent on service locations. So, and I think that's really important in terms of the work that the council's generally been doing. We've also asked that staff gather feedback from residents and local businesses along the route once it's complete, and for staff to review detailed design to give effect to potential Ministry of Transport accessible streets rule changes if they are approved in the meantime, and then that just gives us the opportunity to make sure that it's fit for purpose in terms of the accessible streets changes that we are expecting or anticipating but haven't yet been put in place. And then finally, we've asked people to continue to prioritise advanced bus detection and to investigate the installation of a right turn arrow from Main North Road into Harewood Road. It was an issue that was raised by people who use the bus services, and it was something that we felt that would be an advantage for both the road and for that for those that use the buses. So the overall design, I think, provides a safe route for people cycling through Papanui, Bishopdale, Harewood into the airport, and does provide significant improvements for pedestrians and vehicle users along Harewood Road. And when we come to the end, I think I just want to reflect also on the parents that talked about the need for their kids to be able to use their cycles to get to school and the dangers that they face in that environment. So, but that's just generally the presentation from the hearings panel report. So if I could invite staff to make their presentation, and then we'll go to questions. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. We've got a very short presentation this morning just to cover off a few more of the points that the Mayor has talked through. Just a wee quick reminder from me about our MCR program. It is the arterial network that will then be joined by the local connections network that we have around the city, and our goal is to address the interested but concerned. And when we talk about that, it's about people that don't feel safe getting out there on the road separated with a white line, and trying to encourage them to take one or two of their usual trips each week by cycle rather than by car. We also look to ensure, when we're undertaking these works, to ensure that we improve safety. And as the Mayor alluded to, this road is has reasonably high median speeds. It is quite a quick road, and it is about trying to slow that traffic down, make it safer for everyone that's using that space, pedestrians, cyclists, and other vehicle users. Just a reminder, it is a route that connects from the railway line on Harewood Road out to the underpass at Johns Road near Raywood Fresh, the BP there. And completely lost that train of thought, so I'll stop.
Connections?
Oh, yes, and connects to... And it also connects out to the bike facilities out around McLean's Island, the tracks that go out around to Lake Rotokohatu, and you can get right round to the Groins and round to Northwood that way as well. I haven't done that with my kids. It's quite a good trip. And yeah, so we'll go through that very quickly. We've got half a dozen slides at most. Look, the big thing is this project has been on council's LTP for a number of years. We've been working on this solidly for the last couple of years. There have been many different projects that have come in and gone out. One of the big ones is the Gardeners Brands intersection. That this route does travel through that intersection. There's been many queries and pieces of feedback that the team have worked through in every instance to respond as quickly and as completely as they possibly can. But what we have done through all of this is try to take an evidence-based approach to providing advice to the hearings panel, and by the hearings panel to you. There's been funding and economic assessments, there's been cycle parking counts and surveys, traffic counts, traffic modelling. There's been a vast amount of traffic modelling done actually. We've done carbon emissions analysis, we've done arborist assessments. That's just a quick list of all of the stuff that's been done. There has been a lot of engagement. We've had 2 rounds of consultation or engagement with the community, a number of public open days. The team themselves have had more than 40 individual meetings with individual key businesses along the route, just them alone, let alone the other individuals that we've met on occasion. So in all, it's been a long process to get to this point with a lot of information, and we are aware that there's a lot of information. So we'll quickly talk through the route. The other thing so we'll talk through the route, we'll go through the consultation feedback broadly. One thing to remember is we did a bit of a look. If you take the area between Sawyers Arms Road and Wairaki Road, down to sort of the railway, there's about 8,500 residents in that area, 8,500 properties in that area. When Kelly talks through the communication, we didn't do a letter drop to all of those people, but we did focus up Harewood Road. So Kelly's going to firstly talk through the route, then we'll talk through the consultation feedback.
So I'll just give you a summary of the preferred option. It's a 4.5 kilometre route along Harewood Road. The route is split into 3 sections. Each section has quite a different environment with different considerations. So the west section has a more rural feel. The central section is the busier 4-lane section, and the east section is a combination of residential and commercial properties. Starting with the west section, there were very few issues in the section with the consultation submissions. The section starts at the Johns Road underpass, and that's, as Lynette has mentioned, it links with the airport campus and the business area and the recreational area out there. Then it goes down Whitchurch Place and Waimakiriri Road, and then onto Harewood Road. The facility type in this section is predominantly a shared path on the south side of the road, which is created by widening the existing path. There's a new signalised crossing at Harewood School and at the Waldridge Road intersection that's signalised as well, which is to cater for high traffic volumes. The shared path then continues along Nummock Park. The current design has the shared path next to the road and retains parking along Nummock Park, but as has previously mentioned, due to concerns about the loss of parking along Nummock Park, the hearings panel have recommended that staff investigate moving the path into the park next to the sports field so that we could have an increased number of angled parks along the Nummock Park frontage. From Nummock Park, the facility type is a 2-way separated cycleway on the south side of the road from Kilmuir Lane to the end of the west section at Nummock Boulevard. Yeah. And this facility type in this part here retains the existing footpath and minimises the impact on the established trees in this section. Moving to the central section of the route, the section was more contentious and received the majority of the consultation responses. Due to the proposed reduction of the 4 lanes to 2, the partial signalisation of the Bishopdale roundabout and the reduction in the on-street parking. This section goes from Nunmuck Boulevard to the Greers Road intersection. So the facility type in the section is a 1-way separated cycleway on each side of the road, past Bishopdale Park and past the mall through to the Bishopdale roundabout. And it includes the new signals at the Harewood Gardeners Brands intersection. The Bishopdale roundabout is partially signalised with the 2 Harewood Road approaches and the circulating traffic lanes signalised, and Highstead Road and Farringdon Road, they remain as giveaway controlled. There would be a shared path that goes through the middle of the roundabout and it meanders through the existing trees in the roundabout. From the roundabout to the end of the central section at Greers Road, the facility type is a 2-way cycleway on the north side of the road. And this section also includes improvements at the Greers Road intersection, which would be right turn arrows and pedestrian protection on all approaches. And lastly, to the east section, this section again was less contentious than the central, although the hearings panel, they were interested in discussing the different facility options outside Mitre 10. So the east section goes from Greers Road up to the railway line near Papanui Road. The facility type here is a 2-way cycleway on the north side of the road from Greers Road down to a new mid-blocks signalised crossing located between Chapel Street and Matson's Ave. Then it moves to a 1-way cycleway on each side of the road from the new crossing down to the railway line. So this section connects with the Northwest Arc NCR on Matson's Ave and the Northern Line NCR along the railway line. From the railway line down to Papanui Road, there will be painted on-road cycle lanes, which would connect in with the existing on-road, painted on-road cycle lanes on Papanui Road. In the section of the cycleway east of Chapel Street, which includes the connection with the Northwest Arc, this will be delivered by either Wheels to Wings or the Northwest Arc, just depending on which project gets to construction first in that area. We just want to make sure that whichever project gets there first is able to complete their route. So on to the consultation and feedback. We carried out 2 rounds of consultation for this project. The first round was between January and March of last year, and we received 1,348 submissions. You'll see from the table up there that the submissions came from Harewood and the neighbouring suburbs, but they also came from all over Christchurch. There was a lot of interest in this project. We leaflet dropped to approximately 800 properties along Harewood Road, and from that 800 we received 172 submissions of the 1,348 from Harewood Road residents and businesses. The two most common themes in the first round of consultation were concern about the loss of parking and the reduction from 4 lanes to 2 in the central section. But just a couple of points to note on those figures. Of the 1,348 submissions that we received 323 submissions before the first drop-in session. We know that there were a lot of people who were initially very concerned, but were made a lot more comfortable with the scheme after they attended the drop-in sessions and spoke with staff. But they'd already made their submissions at that point, so they're included in these figures up here. There were also a number of people who didn't support the scheme, but have since then staff have worked with a number of these people to make changes to the designs at their property, and they are now happy with the scheme. But again, those figures are included in this table as well. We carried out a second round of consultation in October and November of last year, and we also had 3 public open days during that time. And we received 86 submissions in the second round of consultation. Of the 86, there were 17 submissions from businesses and residents on Harewood Road. 3 of those were in support, 7 did not support, and 7 did not indicate whether they supported or not. And of those 86 submissions, 64 had already submitted in the first round of consultation as well. The most common themes in the second consultation were the cost of the project, and then again the loss of parking and the reduction of the 4 lanes to 2 in the central section. Since before the first round of consultation, we've had ongoing meetings and discussions with stakeholders along and around the route. And these meetings and discussions will carry on during detailed design so that we can work with people on things like their driveways, their caravan access and their boat access. We have a really comprehensive spreadsheet of everyone who has asked us to record their details so that we could be contacted to work through them on the detail around their properties.
So these results, just to remind you, these are the submission results. We've since made changes to the scheme that Kelly talked through, and that's not reflected in these results.
So just really quickly touching on the areas of interest. The main areas of interest in the west section were there was a lot of support for the signalised crossing at Harewood School and concern around concern around the loss of parking at Nonwick Park. In the central section, there was considerable support for including the signalisation of the Harewood Gardeners Brains intersection, and concern about the loss of parking and congestion caused by the reduction of 4 lanes to 2. But it's worth noting that the loss of parking and the reduction of 4 lanes to 2, that would occur in any of the cycleways that have been designed either by us or by members of the public. There was initially a lot of concern about the loss of 12 trees in the middle of the Bishopdale roundabout. Since consultation, we've had arborist assessments that have confirmed that we now may only need to remove 1 of the oak trees in the middle of the roundabout, and possibly 1. We won't know that until we get to detailed design. And if we did have to remove the 1, then it would be replaced with 2 new trees. And in the east section, there was localised interest around the cul-de-sacing of Wilmot Street at Hawani Street, and also in making Sales Street entry only and Chapel Street exit only. And there was concern about the high number of cyclists going past the Mitre 10 entrance on Harewood Road. During the hearing, the panel asked us to investigate some different options. So the team investigated 7 different options of where we could put the facility outside Mitre 10. And they concluded that the preferred option of the 2-way cycleway on the north side of the road is still the best option. And we've been working with the owners of Mitre 10, and we will continue to do that on the safety measures around the entranceway.
So overall, there's approximately 70 changes proposed along the route from what went out following communication with the community. Now, none of that includes the individual changes to people's driveways, accesses, individual concerns that we've yet to address when we move through detailed design. There's been a lot of talk, and I know there's been a lot of communication in the last couple of days about the community design. So I did think we will talk to that just a little bit. community design has been proposed. It has been sketched up by our team in order to undertake a review. And we got Abley, 2 safety engineers from Abley to undertake a review for us, and so that we could compare the preferred option that went to the hearings panel and the community option. Now, there's a number of issues, but predominantly the issues were around the central section and the solution in the central section. One way on either side of the road versus a 2-way cycleway against the median, creating a local access road on the south side and shifting 2-way traffic to the north side of Harewood Road. The safety engineers talked to us and came and talked to the hearings panel, and actually, as the Mayor alluded to, sat here and said, we actually thought they'd got it right. We thought they'd nailed it. But again, when we got down to the nuts and bolts of the detail, there were some safety concerns that we couldn't find a solution for. The first one that we talk about is the right turn in conflict. So in order to access that local road, which will be one way, if it's one way heading towards the airport, if you are coming from the airport and you want to get into your property, which is, say, here, you will need to come down the north side of Harewood Road and make a hard right turn across the cycleway and into that slip road. That puts you in a position that's really quite uncomfortable from a car driver's perspective, and from a safety engineer's perspective, quite a conflict point. We will also have right turn out. If you're coming along the one way and you want to go back the way you've been coming, you will need to turn across traffic. And this one here is an example of where you are turning right. Out of this, you're looking at traffic coming this direction. You've got to turn across traffic coming this way. 2 lanes of traffic merging. Again, it's a very risky situation to be in. Overall, the reviewers also noted that the design, the submitter's design also results in actually more people crossing the cycleway. So the reality is if everyone will cross the cycleway if you want to go in to get into your property, which you will do anyway, but you will also cross the cycleway if you want to go into that local road to park, which you wouldn't be doing if there was a one-way cycleway. You would be parking on the road. It also, the north side of the road fundamentally changes, and from a collective risk perspective, we change it from a median separated 2-way road, which is what it is now, to a white line separated. So our collective risk increases, but also the risk for the people on the north side of the road trying to get in and out of their driveway. Currently, I know for some of them it's possibly a bit annoying, but you only have to worry about traffic coming from one direction. Now you have to worry about it coming from 2 directions. And it will all be sort of jammed into the one space. So overall, they felt that these safety concerns, we couldn't figure out how to work them through. So that was where we got to with this, with the community design. Look, I would also like to highlight the fact that the team have worked very closely with the community team to try and resolve this. But we're saying today we haven't been able to find that solution, unfortunately. That is largely us in our presentation, so I'll pass it over to the Chair.
Thank you very much. So I'll open it up to questions. Sam.
Yeah, thank you, team, for the presentation. A couple of things. So just on that community design, just so I've got it clear in my mind.
Yep.
The Abley did a safety review of it.
Yes.
So would they have recommended changes there? Like, I'm just thinking I don't know if we can go back, David.
Yeah, pop
Okay.
the slide back.
Like, to me.
Can I take those bubbles all off so we can see it?
Yeah. like for example, because I really like what the community have come up with, but two of the issues there are about the right turnout, or coming over. Couldn't we just restrict the movement in that way, so they'd have to come up?
You have to be able to turn right at some point to get into your property.
Yeah,
or
but,
you'll have to make people go around the block. So we would need to median separate this.
well, I was just thinking though, because remember you guys did that at Waireki Road, where they now have to go around the block.
Yeah, but we would need to median separate it.
I'm just trying to understand why this is different.
Different to an intersection treatment. A left and you talking about Waireki Rangi
so now people have to go
round the block. But this is not a. This is creating a separate road. We can't. I'm not sure how we would do that. We couldn't figure out how to do that. You would have to median separate the two-way road on the north side. So we'd have to build another median to force it because you wouldn't stop it.
So
we would have to. Have I still got my pointer? So we would probably. My initial thought is, and the issue is that we haven't been able to find a design solution to design this out. We have tried. They have looked at multiple options across all of the process. There was 13 different options developed, of which one was this. We have sketched up what we believe is the best. We haven't received a drawn-up design with a solution to this problem from the community team.
yeah,
We haven't been able to figure it out either.
A bit worried about. Okay, we might leave that one for now then. Just the other one, and it will be in a report somewhere, I'm sure. And I know we've gone through it before. How much have we spent to date on this?
We have spent. Hang on, I've got that. We've spent over 2 million.
Okay. And just the other one from me was I was just interested in the Nunweek Park stuff.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to understand what, and it might be a question for you as the chair of the hearings panel, if not the staff, just the engagement with the stakeholders around obviously changing the size of the park. So was it a consideration given by?
That has to be done. Yes.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to work out how the hearings panel.
We haven't asked staff to do the work.
No.
We just got a sense check as to whether it was going to be potentially viable. So
Yeah. Well, I guess what I was trying to understand was how the hearings panel landed on a conclusion to agree in principle to do it, and was that fed
no,
through?
we didn't. We're recommending that
We do the work.
The
to
actual
see whether
phrase
it
to
can be
get to
done.
do the work to see whether it is possible.
Yeah, but it just says, note the hearings panel recommends in principle the approval for this section through Nunweek Park. And I just wondered what the involvement was of users of that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just trying to understand it. Just at that C2 in the recommendations.
Bear with me a second.
I just have to get that.
It still needs to be investigated fully and consulted on.
Yeah. No, it's
But
maybe
it's
it's a
just that
question
they're
for the hearings
saying
panel
we would
rather
like
than
the hearings panel came to through the chair. The hearings panel came to the point that it was raised as an issue. Parking in that area with sports days was raised as an issue. Is there another option? And they agreed in principle that if we could do another option that provided more parking up around that area for the sports events, that would be something they would support.
Maybe I'm missing something. I'm just trying to understand how the hearings panel got to the
Sorry,
point.
we're
In the recommendations, it's 1C2.
right.
So it recommends in principle the approval for Nunweek Park, obviously subject to targeted consultation. What I'm trying to work out is how the hearings panel got to the decision to recommend in principle that.
Well, it was subject to viability and targeted consultation. I mean, it was simply about whether it was technically possible. I mean, there are trees all alongside the frontage of that park. And so we just asked really for an assessment as to whether, there would be enough room. I mean, we didn't do a detailed analysis. I think they looked at the size of the fields and the field of play and the gap between the two. So it was just whether it's technically possible, and what we thought, and I can only really speak for myself, but this was the area that was unanimously agreed by the section that was unanimously agreed by the panel, was that, you know, in principle, we would be really keen to support this option if it's possible, if it's viable, and if the users of the park, we would like to provide more parking for the area if the users of the park don't have their experience diminished as a result. Sorry, Mike, did you?
Yeah, I was just going to add, a lot of it was based on feedback we'd received from the submissions and actually looking at what was potentially possible in that area that wouldn't actually reduce safety outcomes and obviously wouldn't affect the park users as well. So it's basically saying if it's possible, we should look at doing it, but it needs to actually have proper engagement with the...
Is that, I get what you're saying, but is that wording correct though in terms of recommends in principle the approval?
Well, we were, but what we said is that if the option to have a shared path is not viable or approved by the council, that for that section to be a shared path is attached in attachment A. You know, so we said, please go ahead and do all of this work, but if that work then comes to council and council says no, or council says it's just not viable, or the targeted consultation says hands off my part, then as a result, whatever the council makes as a decision, the fallback is that we have the shared path as attached.
Right. So then probably just the only other one, because I don't know whether you mentioned it, Leanne, or you did, Lynette, just around of the engagement with the different departments. Have we gone through, even at a high level with our parks department now, this?
Yes.
Yes.
And
at a very high level.
And what's Andrew's feedback?
Who did we speak with? It was one of the arborists that we spoke with, and they said in principle they'd be happy for us to further investigate it. But that was the level of investigation that we did.
Right.
It was really about the trees and because I mean there's no point recommending that they do further work if the tree roots are going to be an absolute prevention from it. But it all depended on distance and the available space to the park.
And we spoke to Spork and Reg, and they were comfortable with it as well.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
so
yeah,
we looked in Andrew Rutledge and all of that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. No, that's
But it was very high level because it was done through the hearings process as part, it came back to us as a question as part of the hearings process.
Yeah. Aaron, did you have something to add?
Well, just on that, and the reason why it was raised by Jason at the hearings panel is that there's tens of thousands of trees across the city that have footpaths right next to them that most of them do really, really well. Some of them do so well the footpath disappears along with the edge of the gutter. So that was why we couldn't, some of us couldn't understand why it just couldn't be done. There's paths all through Hagley Park right next to trees and stuff.
Yeah, but it's a slightly smaller scale than Hagley Park. So, I mean, there were a number of reasons. There are a number of reasons why. But generally, there was quite strong feelings about supporting this around the table. So that's why it's worded that way. Sarah.
Thanks so much, and thanks for the enormous amount of work on this. I'm interested in the cost stuff. I know that many of our cycleways at the moment are getting substantial central government funding. This one hasn't gone through that process yet. If this is signed off and ready to go and the government, which is likely at the moment, put additional funding, competitive funding in for cycleways, we'd be able to apply for more than the standard 51% for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's what made the difference in some of our other cycleways, having them signed off and ready to go.
Yes, it did make the difference for particularly our shovel-ready projects.
Yeah.
For all of our shovel-ready projects, they were all signed off, ready to go.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah. And do we know how much of the funding set aside for this project is in those safety improvements for other things? So the Breens Gardens intersection, the Harewood School pedestrian, the crossing, those kind of things that we might like to do anyway, even if this didn't pass.
At a high level, safety and other amenity pedestrian improvements. The work we've done in the past has shown that approximately 30% of your project are those sort of improvements. They're not cycleway improvements. There's safety, crossings, pedestrian access, improvements to footpaths, all that sort of stuff. There is, via the council resolution, there is an additional 1.2 million in this project to complete the lights at the Herwood Gardeners Brains intersection.
Yeah.
So over and above that, 30% is that's the best I can give you today.
Okay, thanks.
Phil Major and then Anne Galloway, Jimmy Chen.
Thank you. Did we know about this 2 years ago? We've obviously been working on it that long.
Sorry, well, yes, we've been working on it for 2 years.
I have no trouble with this. I have no trouble with the western end. I have no trouble with the eastern end. The only bit I'm really talking about is the middle. Why did we spend so much money redoing the footpath on the western end 2 years ago when, in theory, we knew we were going to rip it up and put this new one in? Or has it only been the width being extended?
The width is being extended.
That's all we're going to do? It's not totally rebuilt?
No.
Okay, that's cool. Can you go back to the community one, please, with the first bubble on it?
That one?
No, the picture of the
Community.
wherever it is.
Yeah. The first bubble.
There, and the first
Now,
bubble, and the first.
there we go, that one?
Yeah. That, to me, something's not right there, because if you look at the main plan, you're turning off the road where the flush median is, but where you look at the little plan, it shows you trying to turn out of the right turn arrow, and I would be dead scared about that, because you think you're going to get your backside run into. So the plans are not the same. So it's actually...
They are not. They are taken from a different section of the route. It's trying to illustrate it. However, these plans haven't been fully worked up by us, and we've never had the same ones. But it is illustrating. So yes, you've got that, but you need to have a median here. So further down, there's at least two sections of this slip road, of this local slip road. Further, I think this one is this down by the. This is down by Greer's intersection,
right. Yep.
and that's it.
The bubble looks far more has been drawn that it looks far more dangerous than the one above it. That's the only bit that I'm...
They're drawn in different spots. They're illustrating different spots, but the same issue.
Okay.
So apologies, I should have pointed
No, that's right.
Same.
Now, did the people, and I know you talked about this, the people on the north side of the road would not be terribly happy about having 2 lanes of traffic over there, and I can understand that. Did we ask them? Did they come back and say, hell no, we don't want it? Or were they...
We have not consulted on this option.
Okay. And the last one, sorry, did we ever, and I like the bit on the west, which is 2 bidirectional, and I like the bit in the east, which is bidirectional. Did we ever look at putting bidirectional all the way along the north side and doing away with 1 lane altogether and leaving the south side of the road totally as it is?
Yes.
And we decided not to because of?
It would remove parking completely on the north side, and it would have major implications for Cotswold Ave.
But sorry, I'm just losing something here. If we put the bidirectional cycleway where the cars are parking on the north side of the road,
yes,
and move the cars out into the left-hand lane for parking and just leave the right-hand lane, is there not enough room?
There's not enough room for parking as well.
Okay, thank you.
So it had a major impact. Again, it had a major impact on the north side.
Anne Galloway and Jimmy Chen.
Well, firstly, thank you for that an enormous amount of work here, and the way that you've kept going back to community and talking with them and addressing the issues. I think that, I don't think people realise the time that's been involved here and the number of times you actually have talked with community. I think a couple of having talked with somebody from the charity hospital, I just have a few questions about them in particular, because we all agree that they do an amazing service to our community and for our community, and we really want to look out for them. So their delivery trucks, they have an issue with getting delivery trucks into their driveway, and they're worried about that and what effect the cycleway will have on that. Can you give us a bit of reassurance or understanding about that, please?
Absolutely, and absolutely, I'd like to endorse what you said about Charity Hospital. They do provide an amazing service to our community. and we have worked very close. We've tried to work very closely with them and understand the issues that they have. So the team have met with representatives of the charity hospital on a number of occasions, and we understand the issue around delivery trucks. There's also an issue around parking, and they have quite a bit of parking on site. I'll come back to delivery trucks. They have quite a bit of parking on site. We're not removing all the parking from outside their property, and we have looked at options for what we can do to make sure we make access as easy for their patients as possible, because it's often a really difficult time for them that they're going there. With regard to the delivery trucks, the one that is really difficult is they have a lot of gas cylinders delivered, and this truck can't currently access their site by driving into their site. So what it does is it pulls up and backs in, which is not great for anyone. So what we are looking to achieve is to try and have the trucks being able to drive onto the site and drive off the site. So we're looking to work with them to achieve that. We'll widen the driveways. We're looking to change or make sure the nib, so the edges of the curb are set right so that they can be accessed properly. We are also looking, a number of you may remember there was concerns at Copenhagen Bakery. A lot of older folks were struggling with the two curbs to go over. So what we did was we made it a level area outside, and we marked the cycleway, but it's at the same level as the footpath. And we will do the same outside the hospital for the full length of their frontage. We'll put markings and signage in to make sure that people know that it's a different environment and that's a bit special, and they should be a bit careful. Cyclists I'm talking about, not just drivers. And we're also going to narrow the cycleway outside their property so that the cyclists will think, oh, it's a bit narrow, I need to slow down. And we will have signage to get people to slow down. But that also gives them a wider area to load and offload in and out of vehicles right on the road. We are hoping that we will make accessibility through their gates a lot easier, that people will feel more comfortable parking on site. And if we slow that road down a little bit, they might not feel it's as difficult to get in and out. So it's a bit more than the delivery trucks, apologies, but there's a lot more going on there that we've been working on.
So it sounds like you've done a lot of work with them to make things better, actually, than what it is now.
We're trying to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and there seems to be a lack of confidence in the whole safety audit, reports, and can you just give us a bit of a rundown on what has been done with this project in terms of making sure that this is safe?
So there's been a lot of communication in the community about safety audits and what they are and what they aren't. And just to clarify today, a safety audit is under NZTA guidance, it notes, a safety audit is not intended to be a means of ranking or comparing one project against another. What you do is you do a safety audit to assess what you're planning to do and see whether there's any safety issues that need to be addressed before you start the work. We have undertaken a safety audit and functionality review, as we do with our cycleways, of the option that's proposed. As we haven't done the design, we haven't done a safety audit of the community option. We haven't got a complete design in order to do that. Therefore, we asked ABLE to come in and do an independent review. That allowed them to provide us feedback on both options. We're not saying there's no flaws in either of them. What we're saying is we can work through the safety concerns in the one we've got. We haven't been able to in the other one. So that's the difference we've had.
And through the ABLE review, the designers of the community option, they came and they presented their option to ABLE, and then our designers also did the same. So both teams have had the opportunity to talk to the people at ABLE during the review.
Thank you. And lastly, I remember when we first discussed this, we came to this great win-win where we got the funding for the signalised crossing of Gardeners Breens Road for the kids to get it safely across. Is there any risk that could be that advantage could be lost, or because if anything is deferred with the cycleway?
So Herwood Gardeners Brains intersection, through resolution from the FMP committee, was the team were asked to deliver as part of this project. This project is supported with NZTA funding. If that doesn't go ahead, building that in its own right, NZTA have advised in the past that that won't be supported.
So we'd have to pay for that ourselves?
Yep.
Thank you. Jimmy Chen.
Two questions. The first one regarding to your paragraph 1.3. I just want to know, because hearing panel particularly emphasize, recommend council approve the revised scheme of design. That's already done. It's how many items or places already reflect to the council the preferred the revised design. How many items? The first paragraph, yes.
Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah. My question is how many places have been, revised and reflected to the council preferred original
So there's
preferred
been
concept?
70,
Yeah.
70 changes.
70.
70.
Okay.
70.
Okay. Thank you.
Whole route.
Okay. But the other one is you particularly mentioned a number of individuals specific issue,
Yeah.
also raised by the submitters. They were
That's in
for
excess of
the
that.
detailed design.
Yes.
How many? How many?
Oh. I don't know. A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
It's
But
a-
that's not counted in the 70.
Okay.
We have a
That's
substantial
additional.
list.
Additional.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Second one is regarding the second round. Your second round, the figure in here on page 34, and your slides in here looks like the support and the oppose is different.
That should read 7, not 6.
Which one is correct?
The one in here.
Here is correct. Okay. If here is correct, I just want to know regarding 22 new submitters. These new submitters, how many is support?
Sorry.
The on page 34.
Page 34.
New 86. They have 22. It's a new submitters, second one. But how about they support or oppose?
Paragraph 4.13.
Sorry.
Paragraph 4.13.
Yes.
Okay. 4 and 3. 86. 17 submissions.
Yeah. Because why I ask this question, I think probably the second one, maybe an officer, can strengthen our communication, then make the people all aware, They probably more support. I just want to know the figure, how many support.
That's broadly correct.
Yes.
But we got the first number there wrong. I think, is my understanding. It should be 17 from Herwood.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry.
That was done. That table. So apologies. That table was done up overnight.
Okay. So, but it's more kind of support, am I right? Much better than the first round. Am I right?
No, there was less submitters in the second round.
Yes.
Yes.
It's more support. Percentage more support.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to know. Okay. Thank you. This is my question.
Aaron and Yanni.
Right. So two questions because we're on that chart. Why was there not done as a breakdown of locals? Because when you look at that, the locals are at least 3 to 1 against. It's their neighbourhood that we're going into, and people from all over the country are in the other column. Who not many of them bike through there on a daily basis.
We've provided you the facts here.
Yeah.
You can read what you like into it.
Okay. Most don't. They already make their mind up. But and then the other question is on the community design, which we haven't consulted on, and I'm not. And so my question is around why we wouldn't at least consider having consulted on that. And I know it would have taken longer and everything else, but the people that designed it are very experienced council staff, and I believe, unless he lied on the radio, but one of them used to be the head designer here at council, and I don't know, that might not be true, looking at your face, but they were.
She may not know the answer to the question.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I
so
don't know the
they
answer to
seem
that
very
question.
experienced. So to discount them with a subcontractor looking at what they designed, it seems.
Can I clarify the process that we've gone through with the community design? We have never received a drawn-up design from that group of people, the group of submitters. We've had a lot of words, and we've had to interpret those words. We did put out to the community a version of this option. In the second round of consultation, there were 6 options went out and that we discussed with the community. One of these was a version of this. So we have talked to the community, and in that round we received 4 comments relating to that option. But we have never received a drawn-up design from the community group to understand exactly what they want. They were thinking. All we've had is discussions, and we've had to interpret that.
So
we're not discounting it.
Yeah.
We did consult on a version of this, and we haven't discounted it. We've spent a lot of time working with them to understand the concerns, and we have not been able to resolve all. We haven't been able to technically resolve all of the issues that have been raised.
So and I'm not putting a foot in their camp, but others have. But in fairness to them, because they put in a lot of work.
They absolutely did.
So what got audited if they never gave you a design?
We took what we had from that discussion, and hence you've got something that looks a bit like a picture.
Right.
Up there, and we literally went to the Abley offices, and we sat down with this giant roll. It wasn't 4.5 kilometre roll, but it was about 20 metres long.
Not 1 to 1. Yeah.
And we talked it through, and we talked through every section of it, of both designs.
Right.
And both sets of, as Kelly said, both sets of teams were there talking that through, and I sat through all of that as well.
So when you say both sets, that's Abley and ours, or the community designers?
The community designers were there as well.
It's good to clarify.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thanks. Just want to clarify, this is a metropolitan project because it's part of a network, not just one individual. Can you talk to us about the importance of the network and why this is metropolitan rather than a series of small local projects, even though that's the way we're consulting on them?
The major cycle, the program of projects or routes for the major cycle routes program was declared metropolitan as the benefits from so when the strategic case was written, the economics were undertaken, and the benefits from implementing the network was something in the order of 8 to 1. So for every $1 we spend on the network, we get $8 in benefit to the community. A lot of that sits in health benefits, and that was highlighted by some submitters in the hearings process. The benefit, we only realise that benefit when we deliver the network. This is part of that network, and what we do through the process, because you can't consult on everything at once, we have broken it down into routes. However, unusually, it is not a series of little projects, and it is difficult. And this is why these are big and complex to consult on. We consult on the whole route at the same time. It's a bit like the consultation on South Express, which was 15 kilometres long. It's very difficult for the community to get their head around the whole route, because it is about the impacts on them individually. But for you at council, that's why we've declared it a metropolitan project. It has city-wide impacts and implications. And we had a number of people come into the drop-ins that had cycled from across the city and wanted to get out to McLean's Island and wanted to get out to Lake Rotukahatu and others. So we had a range of views, and that's what we presented in the consultation feedback.
Mike? Oh, sorry, Yanni, I'll come back to you.
Thank you. During the consultation at the start of it, a flyer was distributed to a lot of households that from 3 elected members that stated that the project would remove the majority of parking spaces on Harewood Road. Was that a correct statement?
No.
Thank you. During the hearings panel, an elected member made a statement to Talkback Radio that the project would increase emissions by 40%. Was that a correct statement?
No.
And the actual...
refer to the actual questions rather than the context, please.
Okay. During the... in the submissions, there was a submission that said an elected member told a group of people that the cycleway would cost $30 million. Is that correct?
No.
Thank you.
Hey. This is what I didn't want to have happen. So, question, sorry.
Mine actually were
I've got
questions,
Yanni,
not related to that.
I've got Yanni next. So, Yanni.
Thank you. Just wanted to check in terms of the submissions. How many were outside of Christchurch?
No, not outside of Christchurch, but just outside of the local area.
Right.
Within Christchurch.
So most of the other ones would be within the city, but not within the immediate
Yes.
vicinity. In terms of the trees that are being removed, there's 9 in total.
Yes.
5 in the west section, 4 in the central. How many of those trees are mature trees? What's the value of those trees in terms of, have we done any sort of valuation around?
Not a valuation, no.
Right.
No,
Are they
we've got an
big?
arborist assessment, and that's included in your pack of information.
Right. Okay. And do we so? Can you just tell me how many of those are big mature trees versus smaller trees? Are they all sort of the big mature trees?
They're all the team have said they're all relatively mature.
Right. In the community design, so just to be clear, because those of us who aren't on the hearing panel, obviously there's been a lot of information going back and forth, including a lot of emails as well that we've received. So just wanted to check the community design. They're relatively comfortable with what's happening on the west section. It's just the central and the east that they're concerned about.
Yeah, they had a fundamental. They also raised a fundamental issue with the crossing at the Harewood School. They didn't like the mid-block crossings and didn't like that crossing as well. But otherwise, they were fundamentally okay with that
Right.
section, the Harewood School section. So that's West Day. Yeah.
Okay. And the Bishopdale Centre Association, is that the shopping mall complex basically?
The association for the businesses.
Right. And they're representative of the businesses in the area, but it's not a residents association.
It's not a residents association. They are representatives of the businesses in the Bishopdale Mall.
Right. And they said that they had organisers of a 1,200 signature petition. Has that been recorded in the submissions, or?
Yep, that was what came through from Copenhagen Bakery.
Right. So where on the submission chart is that recorded, the 1,200?
That petition came through. That was presented, wasn't it?
It was presented at the hearing.
At the hearing,
There were two petitions presented at the hearing.
Right. But sorry, is that just counted as one submission against, or is that 1,200 against also?
No, it's come through as a petition and formed part of the information. These are the submissions that we received through the submissions process.
And obviously we wouldn't have been able to check how many people made submissions to the petition versus submissions to the process. So we don't know if there's an overlap. What I was interested in the community design is the safety concerns that you've raised. If we look at the Linwood Ave cycle lane, the MCR, Rapanui Shag Rock, we've got the same sort of thing where we've got slip lanes, cars turning out, and across traffic. So I just wondered if we'd done any evaluation of the safety of the Rapanui Shag Rock MCR, where we've got almost, as I would say, identical features that the community concept have proposed that we're saying are unsafe.
They aren't identical in the sense that they aren't we aren't shifting all the traffic onto one side of the road and requiring the other side of the road to be a one-way local slip road. So all I can say to that is that every project and the safety of every project is assessed in the context of that project and the requirements of the project at that time, given the standards as they are at that time, and the outcomes of the project that we want to achieve.
It just, I guess,
I would like to reinforce to the council, we have genuinely looked at every option we can. We have not dismissed this out of hand.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is the two intersections that you've highlighted. Why are they on that angle? And is that a central median, the black diagonal lines? Is that?
No. Yes, it's a painted median.
It's not a hard.
No, it's median. A painted median.
Right.
And so all of the traffic has shifted from the south side. The traffic has doubled on the north side of the road. You will have two-way traffic on the north side of the median as it is now. On the south side of the median, it will be one-way traffic.
Right.
And it'll be a low speed environment. It'll be a very nice environment to live in.
But effectively, it would have similar traffic to Linwood Ave?
No.
A lot more traffic?
No. It's a different environment with different solutions.
Right. Okay. So if we wanted to agree to the west section, but wanted to consult on the community design for the central and the east, what's the best way to do that?
We haven't got a design. So
We'd have to
your options today at council are to approve, to not approve, or to send it back to the hearings panel with.
Yeah, no,
with
I should have said that in my presentation in the beginning.
Yeah, so we're at that point.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to say that. So they're the only three options that we have in front of us today.
So
to approve the recommendations, to decline the recommendations, so not approve them, and send it back to the hearings panel or to a hearings panel.
And I do need to advise you that the advice I've had from the team is that if you do want to consult on the community option, the changes that would be needed to be made to that option would fundamentally change that design.
For the west section as well?
For the west section.
So I guess what I was trying to understand, like in other MCRs, we've split them into different stages. So could you stage the one that's the least contentious, which is the west, and then work through the central and the east?
This is with you today as a complete route, as we have with all of the routes recently. We have a couple of the early MCRs we approved in stages. We then agreed that we're going to approve the whole route to deliver, and that's what this is with you today, as a whole route.
Yeah, I mean, except it's fair to say the submissions are pretty overwhelming local opposition to this.
There's support as well. So, look, you've got an option of approving, not approving, or sending back to the hearings panel to ask for reconsideration. We need to understand that. What the staff's advice is that should you ask us to look at this option, what we would have to design would be fundamentally different to that, because we cannot resolve the design challenges that are in this. The safety issues.
I'm going to take an adjournment after questions anyway, because I've received an amendment which isn't an amendment. So I need to take some advice on that and talk to the councillor concerned. So we will have time to consider those issues.
Just one final question around, and you just wanted to understand if you looked at, and again, just to sort of contrast it to Linwood Ave, the Rapanui Shag Rock, but did you consider a central cycling route? And why was that? Why was that ruled out?
It would have required the removal of all of the trees down the central median.
Even if we reduced some of the traffic lanes on each side?
Yeah. And it was challenging to get through the intersections. So that was one of the 6 options that was put forward to the community as well.
I've got Sam and then Aaron.
Oh, cool. Yeah, just a couple of quick ones, and probably good following on from Mike's, which were good points to raise. How many car parks are actually being removed off this road?
So there's 48% car parking loss.
Right.
Along the route. That's not taken into account if we manage to put more in, so that would be slightly less if we manage to get more in around Nunwood. But 48%, 20% is, so 40% of that, 20% of that loss is around sight lines and design standards at changes to intersections. So signalised intersections require car parking removal.
Yeah. Yep. I just couldn't
putting
see
pedestrians in.
Yeah.
It is the.
So what's that in terms of a number? Stops. Like so 48%. How many? Just for a rough ballpark.
It's really hard because they're actually not formally marked up there at the moment. None of them are.
So how did we get to the 48% then?
It's about what? Sorry. They're whistling on it. They're trying to find numbers. Us next one will come back.
Okay, next one is again, it was a good point Mike raised around the not getting to 30 million, but what happens with the 22 million that's on budget now? I mean, we've got a paper coming after this for another 1.5 million for another cycleway. Yep. Completely get the different circumstances. What's the level of confidence on that budget now?
They're distracted with parking questions.
Okay, and then I can do the other one if you want.
We've done... our level of confidence is as good as it can be at scheme stage. That said, we've been building these now for a number of years. We know how to work with our contractors very well. We are looking to work with our contractor to ensure we get as many efficiencies as we can. So I'm confident that that we can do it.
For the 22 million.
For that number.
And just the only one, just so I'm really clear in my mind around that Nunwick Park stuff. So I think we talked about the arborists may have offered a view.
And we've had Sport and Rec.
And you've had Sport and Rec. So just so I'm clear, the arborists are the Parks Department. And so they've offered a view that they're happy to, because I thought the arborists work for you.
Oh, no, there's arborists who work right across the organisation.
Right, so they're happy, so I'm just trying to understand.
They're happy to work with us to understand whether it can happen, and then we'd have to go and do some consultation.
Right, so they haven't offered a view as such that they're happy to encroach onto the park, but they're happy to talk to you, is that what you're saying?
They're happy, yes.
Yeah, they're happy for us to investigate it further through discussions with them and the community.
Right.
Yeah. And Sport and Rec is saying they think we can fit it in and not encroach on the sports fields.
Right, okay.
So not lower the level of service for people in the park, so not take out a sports field. And not, so does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, as much as it can. So just that car parking number would be the...
330 lost on the 4.5 kilometres. So that's 48%.
So 330 car parks are being removed.
So about 330 along the 4.5 kilometres lost. And
Okay.
that equates to 48%.
Right. Thank you.
Aaron and then Sarah.
So just on those car parks, because I heard earlier that some elected members have been out lying to the public. In the initial, so there's been changes in the design, and some car parks have been saved.
Yes.
Wasn't the initial plan a higher number, which was over 50%? It's about, if I recall, it was around 53. Or was the car park removals not changed at all? It stayed at 48?
It's changed, and we have worked through a number of situations, particularly outside the likes of Copenhagen and others, where we've looked to save as many. We've looked to retain as many as we can.
To retain as many as you can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that number has
I
moved
can't
down
quite
to
the number,
from
but it has reduced through communication and consultation.
right. So we don't know the exact number but it could be as much as say 3%.
3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Right. Okay. Interesting. And there was another allegation, not the one around the price, because that seems high because of the number. I think was 26. I might have said, but the sorry if it was me that was being accused. But the other one was the third one was the not the oh no the leaflet. I had heard of the leaflet. Oh, the emissions. So were we not told with the lane reduction that there was going to be an increase of travel time of around a minute and a half on average, or a minute per vehicle on Harewood Road?
I don't remember the travel time being that high. That said, the hearings panel had quite a presentation on the relative, had some on the carbon emission impacts.
Yeah.
And we had QTP do some more analysis, and it showed that there was a proposed there will be an overall reduction in carbon emissions.
If how many people cycle on it? Because that must be
Given
where
the
reduction-
analysis that was done, because I don't have all the figures in front of me, but the hearings panel had it all, and it's all in the pack.
Right. So,
But it did show an overall reduction.
if 800 or 900 people a day cycle on that route.
It's not that high.
Well, okay, but with the because I think that number had come about because there was 18,000 vehicles a day spending an extra minute on there, which is 1,000 minutes of carbon a day. I would have thought loosely.
So all of the facts were presented
Yeah.
to the hearings panel, and they're in the pack.
Yeah.
Along with that was all of the information that the hearings panel got on the different traffic modelling and the probable traffic pattern changes as a result of changes in the area.
Right. And so when we do the reduction numbers, like, because we have our counts on cycleways, and some of them are quite busy, and I see a lot of people cycling on some of them, especially the really scenic ones, but I note they're not commuters, they're people getting health benefits, going out and good social benefits of going for a bike ride. But do we count those numbers as a carbon reduction?
So the
Because we might as well count all the walking and running around a sports field as pedestrian movement, may as well.
I'm just a little bit nervous about the nature of the, cross-examination, in the sense that...
Oh, there was a trial going on earlier.
No. These were all issues that were traversed at the hearings panel, and all of the information is in the pack that we've got. And I don't know what else staff can offer you in that regard.
Right. I was just trying to clarify for the prosecutor, that was all. Thank you.
No. Sorry, I shouldn't have used that phrase. I withdraw and apologise. But it is difficult because it seems as if you're trying to get a particular answer, which staff have said they can't answer, that the information is in the information you've already been provided. Thank you. Sarah? Yanni?
Yeah, thanks. Just at a high level, because there's been so much opposition sort of expressed, I'm just trying to get a sense of, in relation to the other cycleways that we've done, have we seen, is there any that we've approved where we've had such a high level of concern expressed from submitters?
Yes, I think the Papanui parallel was in Ferry Road. Yes. So
Was the same, was it, I don't recall, in terms of the revised design down Ferry Road, I thought most people were quite supportive when it went through. You did a lot of work with the independent traffic consultant at the time, I think a similar person here, and I think actually my recollection was that the community put on a morning tea to say thank you.
Now, one of the recommendations that's come out of the hearings panel is that we look at, sort of reviewing these as they go in order to engage with businesses that were concerned about effects prior, and then doing an analysis about the after.
So lessons learned.
Yeah.
but also how they've settled into the community and how they're finding them once they're being used. And that doesn't happen in 2 or 3 months. That happens in 6, 12, probably 24, 48 months.
Mm.
That's when we need to go back and talk to them. And some of our early ones, like Papanui Parallel, we're only just getting to that point. They've only been built that long.
Yeah.
So.
Because it's a slightly different process now than what we've had for some of the other cycleways?
No, this is following the same process that we've always followed, except it's a
No,
hearings
the
panel as
decision.
opposed
Yeah, the decision making. I mean,
well, it's a hearings panel as opposed to the committee.
Yeah.
It's not a different process.
yeah. Okay, and then I know one of the concerns around the Mitre 10. One of the things we were advised in the workshop was that it was similar to Ferry Road and the ITM, but I would think that the traffic for the ITM along Ferry Road is a lot less than what would be going to that mega Mitre 10 in Papanui. So I guess I'm just still really concerned around that design, the two ways separated on the north side.
It's one way past Mitre 10. It's one way separated past Mitre 10, and that is part of the design. So this is Mitre 10, there, and it is one way separated facility, and that is part of the mitigation of the design, is to only have a one-way cycleway past their yard and past the entranceway. So yes, we did use an analogy of ITM on Ferry Road.
Do you think people are going to like stop and cross the road to go the other way, or?
That is part of the mitigation. We've been working really closely with Mitre 10, who are working really closely and proactively with us to find solutions, and they want to find solutions as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, was it Phil? Did you have your hand up, or?
Yeah, we have a young question.
Not quite.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry, Lynette, I've been scribbling up numbers here. At the moment, we've got roughly on each side of the median 9.1 metres from median to curb, roughly. I'm not asking you to verify that because I don't expect you to. If we move, and I can understand, I've been looking at these numbers, if we move the curb into at the moment we've got 3.8 metres wide of footpath and grass berm. If we move the curb on the north side into the grass berm by 800 mils, or say a metre, that gives us enough room to do everything on that side with the bi-directional cycleway and room to park cars and a lane for one lane, but no.
And remove all the Orion poles.
And remove all the Orion poles and underground all the cables. And there is the team. Honestly, the team have looked at it, and we really did look at it. We also took it out to the community as part of the second round of consultation, and it's hard and it's more expensive.
Because when I look at all of these little cross sections, which are very good, every one of the cross sections has got either 3.7 for a car, or 3.8, or 3.8 for a footpath, or 3. They're all different. So a parked car and a moving car, the numbers change all the time just to make it sort of fit the gap.
That's what we've been trying to do all the way down, is find a way to make it work.
But everyone is different.
Hence we have proposed,
Mm-hmm.
and the team here have worked really hard. They've put up multiple options. They've designed them up, worked through them. They've been challenged on them every single step of the way, not just by the community, but by staff, by councillors, and definitely by the community.
Okay.
And they really have worked hard. Everyone has said they want the safest option as well, to find that. And there are compromises through all of it.
It is. How much would that cost to basically underground all of Orion's poles down there? Because that's the issue down there.
So the only reference I can go back to, because we haven't done a lot of undergrounding, not a lot of large scale undergrounding since before the earthquakes. We used to do it when we did our street renewals.
Yeah.
And prior to the earthquakes, we were running at about $1 million a kilometre. And that was large scale undergrounding.
Okay, on the other side of that, why don't we move? It's only 800 millimetres to give you the exact width you want. Why don't we take 800 millimetres off the median on the inside? I'm just trying to find some.
We looked at that as well, and that median's not very wide for the trees that are down there. So you take 800 metres off, you haven't got viable trees down there, we lose trees. Yeah. It's actually not a very wide median. It's not a Linwood Ave median.
That's the solution I wanted, was down the middle.
Yes, and we really looked at it too.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, well, look, I'll formally move the resolutions of the recommendations of the hearings panel. Mike Davidson will second it. And I'm now going to adjourn the meeting just while we take some additional advice. And Aaron, could I see you, please? if we could retake your seats, please. Could I just ask Lynette, you just had some additional advice for us in terms of the number of car parks. It was an error in the advice.
There was an error in my my recollection of the numbers. So originally, when we went out to consultation, it was 41% loss along the road, as Councillor Kewen asked. So that was, and then we've got that has come down to 40% loss, and of that, about 15 to 20% is because of changes at intersections and pedestrian crossings.
Yeah.
So my apologies for that.
No, that's fine. All right. Okay. Just in terms of moving on to the debate, I have a notice of a foreshadowed motion. I'm just getting some additional advice on it. But and if I have to rule on it, I can rule on it closer to the time. But it's that a foreshadowed motion from Councillor Kewen that the council refers the design back to a hearings panel for further consideration of the retention of the existing 4 lanes on Harewood Road, and request a staff report on the installation of the traffic lights at Harewood, Breens, Gardeners Road. So that's a foreshadowed one. So we'll move on to the debate, and I'll just kick this off. So the major cycleway program of 13 major cycleway routes has been part of our city's commitment to generating the significant modal shift to cycling that we require as a city for a number of years. It was originally signalled in the 2012 transport plan, the Christchurch transport plan, and also signalled in the report of the work that the City Council did in preparation for the 3-year plan that they did in 2013. So this was a commitment that this council entered into, prior to many of the councillors that sit round the table, and certainly prior to myself becoming the mayor. So, and the reason that the council made this commitment was that in a post-earthquake environment, it actually gave the city an opportunity to look strategically about its future, and could we future-proof the city in terms of some of the decisions that we were going to be making. There was a significant amount of focus at the time on the government's blueprint for the central city development, but the city itself took responsibility for really actioning an approach to modal shift that would take us into the 21st century. We needed to create a viable transport option, which included these people that were concerned about safety. And people my age remember when cycling was the norm. We all cycled to school. People at university, the James Height building, underneath that was the cycle park. It was huge. It was packed with cycles all the time. There were very few student car parks. Most car parks were for staff. And even then, a lot of the staff cycled to university. So it was safe to cycle to and from school for children, for older people. People were quite comfortable in that environment. But then we had this open access to second-hand cars that flooded the country, and all of a sudden everyone was a car owner, and everyone had the capacity to buy vehicles that could travel at significant speed and manage to crumple on contact. So there was a huge difference in the environment. It isn't safe for everyone today, and this is about all of the users. This is about pedestrians, it's about cyclists, and it is about people who drive cars as well, because it is about making the whole environment safe for everyone, safer for everyone. It's never possible to completely protect against certain things. It is hard to retrofit separated cycleways into existing streets than it is to embed them in brand new, right from the outset. And we just look at the motorway out to the north and the wonderful cycleway that's been built in there alongside it. It's a fantastic environment for everyone. But our major cycleway routes are being retrofitted, and the best for me remained the incomplete northern line alongside the corridor. That was a convenient walkway for me when I was a kid, and then of course the unicycle, absolutely fantastic, and its opening saw expectations being exceeded straight away. This is the missing link in a metropolitan project that this council's been committed to since 2013. The hearings panel considered a huge amount of information and material, and I do want to again acknowledge both members of the panel and the staff for the incredible amount of work that they have done, and I'll wrap it up at the end by acknowledging the incredible amount of work that has continued to occur with an ongoing with the community. Thank you. My time is up. So, Pauline.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to speak for long on this. I think, Leanne, you've covered it brilliantly, and including with your introduction as well. But look, we know that we're in a climate emergency, and there's nothing more telling than what's been happening this week. And cycleways are part of our response to our human accelerated climate change impacts, and they provide mode choice and zero emissions, such as cycling safely. But retrofitting cycleways is the challenging part, but it's the right thing to do. We need to encourage mode choice, reduce emissions, and provide cyclists with equitable travel choice in view of safety, and enable young children to cycle, and then they'll continue to cycle. And look, staff have obviously laboured long and hard over this. You've put in untold hours with the community, and look, it really needs recognition of what you've done. The level of community engagement has been incredible. No time has been spared to speak with people, I can tell that, and I know what sort of engagement that you run. And the 70 changes you've made is in response to that. Look, to send this back will add time, and time equals huge cost increases. Approve it today, get people pedalling safely. The 13 NCRs are just one project. We're getting there. This will be one more piece, and then we'll begin the connections. Approve this today. Let's just get on with it. Cycleways are climate action.
Thank you. Jimmy Chen.
Okay, thank you. I remember 3 years ago, Council declared our city, the city of Otautahi Christchurch, is a climate and ecological emergency city. So over the past couple of years, in particular, we reviewed the past several days in Christchurch and also in whole South Island, the severe heavy rain, so caused a series the flooding. So this significant evidence the climate change is more and more serious. Also, northern hemisphere we can see also drought, also quite serious. Quite a few the kind of location, city, even more than 40 degrees. It's evidence. But MCR, major cycle route, is one of active transport mode to encourage people to take a bike, biking safely, also reduce the carbon emission and take a positive action in response to the climate change. I myself, recently, I purchased a new bike, but I practiced in the Rickland Park, not yet, go on to the street. But once the South Express major cycle route done, I would like to take the bike to the street. Because why? Because we have this MCR, it means it's more safe for the bikers. Also, the hearing panel, they review and listening to all the submissions, and also they have already for amended 70 changes to the revised scheme changes. And also some individual specific issue that will be reflected to the kind of detailed design. So it means the hearing panel already to listen to and review all the submissions and take the more kind of active action to reflect to even the scheme design or in the future the detailed design. That's very fantastic. And also particularly we review this information, we are all aware the elderly people surrounding those retirement village and also for the school kids. Actually, this is the kind of initiative from the Hellwood and the surrounding the school, to give those kids for the synchronized biking more safe. I think it's a greater the benefit, to those people. Also, all those kind of police, fire emergency, New Zealand and St. John ambulance, they all support this one. So regarding to all these factors, I support the hearing panel recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Tim?
Yeah, thank you. It was mentioned before about, when some of us were kids, we biked to school and that was the main kind of transport. But really it isn't about us, it's about our grandchildren. And with change, sometimes there is a bit of pain, but we do have to make a change. And this, I think, is part of that. A lot of the comments I get from people in my ward with regards to the cycle lanes put in is they want now the connections for their children to be able to get to school safely. So it's not about today, it's not about tomorrow, it's about our grandchildren's generation and those generations beforehand that we've got to make a change, especially now with the intensification that's happening. And as that goes on, it's not going to make these streets safer. So I'll be in support.
Thank you. Sam McDonald.
Excuse me. Look, I'm more keen to support Aaron's foreshadowed motion, and I kind of get what Tim was saying in terms of the people in his ward saying, that actually we've got to do a few of these things, and I don't think people dispute that. But what the people have been saying in Harewood is actually overwhelmingly locally that they do not want the design that's there now. So, look, I'm not convinced we're there yet. I really think that community concept should be explored a lot more. And I think, that the theme that keeps coming through is, how can we actually listen to the community as opposed to sort of doing it to them? And I'm just not sure yet. I appreciate there's been a lot of work done, but I just don't think we have enough solutions to make it comfortable for the people of the Harewood ward. So I'd be more, I will support the foreshadowed motion, but after the overwhelming feedback from the local community, the local people that live in that area, I just can't in good conscience support the current design.
Sarah?
We know lots of things to be true about cycleways. We know that they are climate action. We know that they are really great for equality and that more women will bike when they have a safe cycling route. We know that they ease congestion, that they have an amazing benefit-cost ratio. We know that they make it safer for kids to bike to school. We know that there's been an enormous amount of work to try and find the safest possible solution for this particular cycleway. And when it comes to the local versus the non-local votes, the people in my local area, Tim's local area, are currently flooding. And I think that their voices when it comes to climate action are just as valid as those who might have a driveway impacted down Harewood Road. But I'm tired of putting up rational, evidence-based arguments every time we come to a cycleway decision. The heat waves across Europe and across America, the floods across the country time and time again this winter, the fires in Australia a couple of years ago, all make it crystal clear that we cannot delay acting on climate change. And what we frequently hear is people trying to delay action. People say that they don't deny climate change, but delaying action on climate change has exactly the same impact as denying that it exists at all. And what makes it worse is that if you acknowledge that climate change exists, that it is human generated, and that we can do something about it, and then you choose not to, you are personally making a decision which will impact our city in the future. You are making a decision to increase emissions. You are making a decision to increase sea level rise. You are making a decision, a deliberate choice as an individual to increase the risk of fires on our Port Hills, and that is abhorrent. I've heard some talk about people trying to think about taking funding from this to put it towards flooding. And to that I say, if your bathtub is overflowing, the first thing you should do is to turn off the tap and not start planning for a bigger drain. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Phil?
I will be supporting Aaron's foreshadow motion because I think we haven't looked outside the square far enough in the centre block. I'm more than happy with both ends. I think it will happen. It'll be great, but I don't think we've got the buy-in of all the businesses on the south side, the Bishopdale shopping centre there. I'm just reading a letter about that. So I won't be supporting the whole thing, but I will be supporting Aaron's motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? James?
Yeah, I too will be supporting Aaron's foreshadowed motion. Look, safe, practical and cost-effective cycleways I'm in complete favour of, but wheels to wings, however, doesn't appear to get the balance right in any of those. This looks to be a hugely expensive ideological solution that's been reverse engineered to be implemented at literally any cost. So, don't worry that as a council we haven't been able to process consents on time. Don't worry that rates are set to increase by 50% over the next 10 years. Don't worry that our level of debt will be higher than the ceiling LGFA originally set for us. Don't worry that half the city smells like faeces and that the other half is virtually underwater. Because that's all cool. A controversial $22 million gold-plated cycleway will go ahead. And I think that is what really, understandably, angers people about our council. Look, the proposed wheels to wings cycleway, in my view, is over-engineered, overpriced, and from the overwhelming community feedback that I've received, it's largely unwanted by the very people that it's going to directly affect. So I think the community's plan that they have come up with is a really good start point to come up with something that's for the community by the community. And I think that we're incredibly lucky that we've got a community that's engaged, that wants to work with us, and that's an opportunity that we should take with both hands. I don't think that we would be responsible to sign this off today at all, and for those reasons, that's why I'll be voting against the recommendations and supporting Aaron's foreshadowed motion.
Yanni?
Thank you. So I think this is really interesting because effectively what I've heard from the community is that they're not against having a cycleway through here. They actually like the idea of a cycleway, but they've got serious concerns about some aspects of the design, particularly in the central and the eastern section. And I guess for me as a councillor who's dealt with the Ferry Road MCR and saw the really good work that council did with the community, with local businesses and local experts, and got to a situation where I think by and large we got a design that was accepted and was appreciated, that culminated in the community actually organising a morning tea to say thank you to the councillors and the staff for the work that they'd done together. It really saddens me that there is so much opposition to what's being proposed in terms of this design, but it heartens me that the community have got together, I presume funded their own traffic engineers or have had people donate their time to volunteer to come up with a community concept. One of the quotes in the paper of the letter that we've received from them says that let's not have another St. Asaph Street. And, I tend to, when I look at the design that's been proposed, I tend to share sympathy with the community concept design versus the one that's in front of us. I've sent you pictures of what happens along Linwood Ave, where we've got a slip lane and a crossing across an MCR. And I can see no reason why that should be a showstopper for the community concept that's been put forward. I also think more fundamentally as a council, we do need to recognise that we have some of the highest level of dissatisfaction from our residents around agreeing that council makes decisions in the best interest of the city. In 2019, that was at 45%. The most recent survey in 2022 is at 31%. And the second measure that we have, where we have a target of 55%, is the percentage of residents who feel the public has some or a large influence on decisions that council makes. That's dropped from 34% in 2019 to 25% in 2022. And I think this decision making today is a classic example of where people have overwhelmingly expressed a view to us, but the recommendations are to continue with a design that people generally, as my understanding from the submissions, do not support. So I'm happy to support the Western approach. I think that's the one that's got the least amount of contention. I don't support the foreshadowed amendment to retain the existing 4 lanes on Harewood Road, but I do support the hearing panel considering the community concept and putting it up for consultation. I think we could get a win-win and get people on board with us around what we're trying to do to achieve our cycleways and our climate change goals.
Anyone else? Aaron? It's not. I called you, Aaron.
Okay. Yeah, so this is an interesting one because it's come out of many years of requesting, lobbying, asking from our community for a traffic light to be installed at an intersection to allow the local children to go to school. Fair call. It come from a mother of 2 young children, probably at university now. It's been so long and it's fallen on deaf ears at this council. Ask and ask again so kids can safely get to school. And we hear about safety all the time. And yes, well, I disagree with some of the points made around cycling. Cycling is not dangerous. On average, 9 people a year die in New Zealand of cycling, and back in the safe old days of the 1970s, it was 30 on average. But there was a lot more people cycling, as Jake pointed out to me. Does hard-engineered cycleways save the planet? I don't know. I haven't seen enough numbers to suggest that even the offset of that $20 million spent on Harewood Road would save the planet. If we did, say, an inspirational e-bike program with that $20 million, we could have 20,000 people inspired onto e-bikes on a bike share program across the city. That would get people on bikes. That would get 20,000 people on bikes. And if you don't use it, you lose it. It would come back to the city. $20 million would get us 2 million trees. At $10 a tree to buy and have planted, we could add 2 million trees to our city. Would that offset the climate emergency more than putting in a cycleway on Harewood Road? And to Yanni's point that the community overwhelmingly are against this. This council constantly does it to the community, not with the community, hence why our popularity rating is where it's at. And then also, the climate change budget is limited. We need to be really, really smart about how we go about saving the planet. And does $20 million on Harewood Road save the planet as much as other actions could? And let's also not forget that the world's population has a net increase, even with COVID, of 83 million people a year, all of which will have a carbon footprint. So we could be doing much about the world's population. We could be doing much about planting trees and going for transport solutions, remembering that Harewood Road will still be used by far a majority of other vehicles, which this council deliberately congests to get behaviour change, which is a climate crime in its own right. We need to get people moving as efficiently as possible. That is the best way for the planet, it is the best way for people's own lives, and is the best way for the economy. And this council lied to the people of Harewood 3 years ago in 2019 when it said that it would install the traffic lights if we went up for consultation. We went up for consultation and you don't like the answer the public gave you, so you lied to them.
Anyone else? Mike?
Thank you. Look, I think the $20 million for the cycleway will go a lot further saving the planet than the $683 million for a stadium. But look, the recent rain events have highlighted the seriousness of climate change and the need for us as a city to both actually adapt and mitigate. And cycleways are climate action, and supporting cycleways is supporting the future. The evidence has been clear about the many benefits of separated cycleways, including climate, health, safety, productivity, and more. Cycleways do not remove roads or the ability to drive. They give people choice on how they choose to travel. And it has been disappointing to see the myths and disinformation that has been put into the public domain to stir up communities by elected members. And we saw this coming through in numerous submissions. For me, though, one of the most important aspects of this in any cycleway is about creating a safer environment for people, young and old, who choose to bike. There was a theme that came through the submissions that no one cycles on Herwood Road. Bike down Herwood Road at peak time and you will know why. It is not a safe environment to bike in. And it has been a journey to get to here today. And it did not start when we announced the consultation at the end of 2020. You can go back to 2009 when local school children from Breens Intermediate approached council because they wanted improvements to Herwood Road to allow them to bike to school more safely. And it was in 2010, just before the earthquakes, that council approved reducing 4 lanes to 2 to make it safer for people to bike. However, this was not implemented because of the earthquake. And this was from a Facebook post earlier this year, not in Christchurch, but in the early hours of this morning. Our old and dear friend Tom died after injuries received on Friday from being doored. Please, please, people, be aware and do all you can to push the authorities to provide safer routes and facilities everywhere you ride. During the same time, 5 people died from cycling within a 38-day period, and yet we have to continually debate the value of separated cycles. And I'm astonished that I have to continue to listen to councillors who value a car park over the safety of a person cycling with their standard line, I'm not against cycling, but this cycleway allows people to bike in a safer environment to Papanui, Bishopdale, Herwood, the airport, which is one of the biggest employment hubs in Christchurch, Maclean's Island and more. It also allows school children to go to numerous schools without having to negotiate a busy road that many people are currently too scared to bike on. We know of the courage that school children back in 2009 who wanted a safer Herwood Road for cycling. Many of us saw the footage of the child being knocked off their bike at the roundabout. Right now, it takes courage to ride this road in its current form. Children should not have to navigate this road if they want to bike to school. Courage should not be found in our children. It should be found in us to make the right decision. Local 2022 data show that only 22% of people who bike on the roads are confident and they're not concerned about having an accident. On a cycleway, that jumps to 75%. It encourages uptake, and this is the right decision to make.
Is there anyone else before I wrap up the debate? Thank you very much. Look, I just wanted to acknowledge the community who have put a lot of effort into submitting on this process, both at the first step and the second step, and for engaging with staff in a way that has enabled staff to make significant changes to the design that we have in front of us today and that we're being asked to approve. The detailed design step will be another opportunity to look at some of those points of conflict between driveways and others, other parts, and commitments have already been made to a number of the businesses about the work that can be done to make those safe environments for their customers as well as for others. I've watched customers coming out of some of the one of the businesses in particular and observe them making that crossing and then doing a U-turn to get back on the other side. And there are dangerous manoeuvres that occur now in a very fast-moving environment. Nothing was travelling below 60k when I was sitting in one of the shops. So I'm just saying that this is a very challenging area anyway. It's a challenging environment, and their changes need to be made. This isn't a single route, it's one of the missing links in the major cycleway networks, and a number of the routes have been harder than others, and this is one of those. The benefit of this route is that it has an underpass, not just to the airport, but to Maclean's Island, and as a link to other routes, and it has 4 lanes in some parts, which actually make it easier to resolve what is a very difficult environment, particularly given the size of the the separator on the road in the middle, which only has very little room on either side of one row of trees. It's not like Linwood Ave at all. So thank you very much for the quality of the debate, but I'll now move to the voting and
Can I ask that you put them in separate sections?
No, because I'm putting the recommendation of the council and of the hearings panel, and this is the decision of the hearings panel. So I'm not going to go through section by section. It is a whole. We've already heard that. So we'll take a division on the. I'm putting them as one set of recommendations. I'm not putting them separately because you can't separate them into different channels, but I've ruled that, so we'll now move to the voting. Sorry? Yeah.
Councillor Keon?
No.
Councillor McClellan?
Yes.
Councillor McDonald?
No. Excuse me, no.
Councillor Davidson?
Aye.
Councillor Galloway?
Yes.
Councillor Scandrett?
Yes.
Councillor Chu?
No.
Councillor Coker?
Yes.
Councillor Cotter?
Aye.
Councillor Chen?
Yes.
The Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Templeton?
For our kids, yep.
Councillor Major?
No.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Johansson?
No.
Councillor Donovan?
Yes.
Councillor Goff?
No.
That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 4. And against is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Thank you. I declare that carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jane. I'll just move now to the Lower Cashmere and Hoon Hay speed review.
Happy to move. Happy to move.
Tim is happy to move it and Phil is happy to second it. Are there any questions? Is there any debate? I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Right, there you go. Thank you for your incredible contribution to that, that discussion. But it was it's been well canvassed. I'm only teasing you. It's been well canvassed. Thank you very much. Request for drawdown of contingency funds for the Coastal Pathway Monks Bay. Moved by Jake McClellan, seconded by Sarah Templeton. Are there any questions? Yes, Yanni?
Yeah, I was just surprised that our board was recently briefed on the design. When is the design going to be made public through Redcliffs Village? And what's the time frame for getting the consultation feedback? I note that there were several concerns raised at the community board briefing. I wasn't made aware at the briefing that there was going to be an additional budget implication, but I am concerned that we may not need to spend this extra money and we won't know until we've consulted the community.
And if we don't need to spend it, we won't spend it. What we're doing is prepping for what we're doing. But have you got anything on the timeframes around that?
I suppose we're doing some pre-consultation within the next month or two, and then we're looking to go out to a formal consultation after October, late October.
Do you know how much of the skirt repair work will be ripped up and replaced with what's proposed through the village?
No, we don't at this stage.
All right. And so just from reading the report, I just wasn't quite clear how this got added into the coastal pathway.
That coastal pathway, that the bid to shovel-ready funding was done by the Coastal Pathway Trust, and it was to complete the Coastal Pathway network. The Redcliffs Village section needs to be finished as part of that.
So it's not a decision of council, even though it goes through.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Oh, I'm just concerned because I think there's a master plan project as well through here, and there was a skirt renewal program as well. So I'm just puzzled why this is seen as an important priority, given how much effort's already been put into
The
this
shovel
area.
ready funding was to complete the coastal pathway, which requires facilities through Red Cliffs Village, which is being proposed. Correct? Yeah. This report today is a report to request the drawdown of contingency funds. It would normally be dealt with under staff financial delegations, but we have committed to council through the Finance and Performance Committee to report all drawdowns of shovel-ready contingencies to council. So hence you're getting this report today. And if it's not used, it won't be spent. It's not required, it won't be spent. But at the moment, the assessment is it will be required for a number of reasons.
So when will council get the briefing on the design?
Council's already signed off and endorsed the concept design for the whole of the coastal pathway. Used that years ago.
Right, which included this section.
Which included this section. If we have to make changes, as we did in this section further up by the yacht club, it will come back to council or community board as required by delegations.
Sarah, and sorry, I was Phil was
fine.
next. Sorry, Phil, and
Yeah, thanks. So this contingency, we had the other day the larger contingency for the one by the tannery too. That was out of shovel-ready contingencies. This is exactly the same.
Yes,
this
but
is
this
not.
is the contingency relating to coastal pathway.
Yeah, that's fine. So the contingency is coming out of shovel-ready money contingencies, not ours.
No, it's our money.
It's
We
our-
had to put the contingency money on budget.
Mhm.
So as agreed in the shovel-ready agreement with the Crown, we had to have contingency available. That was added as part of the last annual long-term plan, annual plan.
yeah, I think the long.
Sorry, I'm muddling months together. But
So-
at the last, whenever that was agreed, it must have been the long-term plan.
Yeah.
So no, what I'm getting at, the money for the tannery one, that was contingency from different jobs. That was also shovel-ready money. That contingency didn't cost.
We're here talking about the coastal pathway.
Yes.
And all of the contingencies, all of the program contingencies are the money that we had to put on budget to ensure the projects could progress as part of the agreement to shovel-ready money. It is our money, not shovel-ready money is.
Okay.
It is our money.
Right.
All of the contingencies for all of the projects that are shovel-ready is council money.
Okay, so
All of the contingencies
I think
are
he's got
council
it.
money.
I think
Yeah.
he's got it.
I've got it. Yeah.
And that was reported, that's why we're reporting to you now, and it's why we reported to you last time.
So we have an agreement with the council staff that even if it's within a program budget, they are required to come back and ask for the drawdown on contingencies. This is to prevent the town hall situation ever happening again.
Sorry, it was my mistake. I'm under the impression that I'm going back to the tannery one that was around about 3 mil, I think, from memory. That came from somewhere
No.
out of contingencies that were always ours.
I'm sorry, it's exactly the same situation as this. So
Right.
that one was exactly the same as this. We had a program level contingency for cycleways or for other projects. Everyone has a program. Every one of our shovel-ready projects has a contingency.
Mhm.
They are all the same, and we are drawing them down.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Which was explained.
But the
at the
balance,
time
but the
of the
balance
approval.
comes from the Crown.
The balance comes from the Crown.
Yeah. Right, Sarah.
Well, the
Thanks,
project
Lynette.
money, but the contingency money is all council.
All council. Yeah, it always was.
There's an enormous amount of work going on under the ground that isn't pathway, if you like, that's not actually cycling or shared path infrastructure. Can you talk about the upgrade of the actual old infrastructure under there and how much of that work is being done as part of this project that council would we have to have done that anyway?
Do you want to answer that or do you want me to? So we're upgrading, correct me if I'm wrong, water supply, wastewater, and there's a major upgrade to an Orion cable going in through there because they're needing to be shifted. So they are being upgraded now. They are all old infrastructure that would have needed to be upgraded at some point, and that was identified when we did the Peacock's Gallop section of this route as well. And it is future-proofing it, so we are getting it into the corridor that we can access easier in the future. But we do need to shift it because of the design that we have, so we're upgrading it at the same time. But yes, it's a significant amount of work that is all coming out under the shovel-ready money that the government's providing.
Cool, thanks.
Sorry? He's happy to move. I've got it moved and seconded. Is there any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say
Aye.
no.
It's a delay. Where is the embargo?
Yeah, don't worry about doing that, Andrew. Just put your hand up.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
You're frightening. You're frightening me. This booming voice coming from behind me. And that is carried.
And it's helpful because there is need for a bit of humour to just bring the temperature down.
Right. The Canterbury Museum easements appointment of independent commissioner to hear submissions, and Anne Galloway is sitting back from the table. Sorry, did you say? Oh, you're happy to move, happy to second. Been a lot of discussion about this. Any questions? Any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. This shows the benefit of substantial briefings and a paper that's very clear to read. So thank you very much. The next one is the sorry, I need to open up the page.
Worcester
I can't see what
Boulevard.
it's called.
Worcester Boulevard.
Worcester Boulevard, Ralston House, future use update. The recommendations. I'm very keen to move this one. Seconded by Jake. Are there any questions? Sorry? Debate. Sarah Templeton.
Just wanted to say how pleased I am to see that this has actually come through. I know when this was first proposed to be sold off because there wasn't a really obvious use that had been looked for at that point. And so the staff recommendation is that we looked at selling it, and there was significant interest from the community in retaining that instead of just getting a quick asset sale sort of cash sort of hit for the council. And it's really pleasing to see that we've got this amazing community use for a minimum next 3 years, and to hopefully be financially sustainable in that space afterwards and fulfil our Toi o Tatahi art strategy aspirations. Thanks.
Sam?
Well, it's not very often I say it, but I agree with Sarah. It's really good to have an informed conversation about what we own as a city, and if it can work, then actually we can deliver on it. So I think that's sentiment shared right around the council table.
Yep. And I'll just close that off. Look, I just wanted to acknowledge Kerry Jardine in particular, because, this is why I wanted to move it. This was an outcome that I really wanted us to be able to achieve. A building like that, it's like the jewel in the crown, really. Its location is ideal, and we've managed to match the purpose to the location. And I just think, when you think of all of the heritage sympathetic adaptive reuse proposals at no cost to the council that you could imagine, I literally could not imagine a better outcome. So I just want to thank the staff. And I know, Kitty, you're not the only one that's involved. There's others as well. But I just would like you to take back the grateful thanks of the whole council for the work that you have done to make this happen. So thank you very much. And on that note, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. A next item is a request for approval of a second extension of time for a Heritage Incentive Grant for 141 High Street, known as the Duncan's Building. Happy to move James Goff, seconded by Jack McClellan. Any questions? Any comment?
I'll put this under delegation. They can do this. It doesn't matter now, but
Yeah. Anyway, we'll take that offline. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much, Brendan. Plan change 5 decision. Has anyone got any questions on this one? No? Would someone like to move it? Oh, well, no, if you have a question, just... Have you got your microphone on? Oh,
Thank you.
right.
Apologies for that. It was in the planning part 1027 Edgeware, Colombo Street. I couldn't find any detail on that, whether I missed it or not. Do you recall what that is?
I can't remember what the nature of the business in the shop was, but the issue with this one was that one of the topics in the plan change, it was a plan change that had 9 different topics, and one of them was tidying up where there's kind of mapping irregularities in the plan.
Oh, okay. So
and the owners of 1027 identified their property as one that was one of those irregularities, and the council simply agreed that it was, even though it wasn't notified in the original plan change.
Okay, thank
so
you.
that's been fixed up now.
Thank you.
Any discussion? No. I'll just mention one thing, which is the plan change 5D home occupations. Very pleased to see that. Stood on the street talking to a group of residents in a particular part around an unusual and unexpected home use of a residential property, and this has enabled us to clarify this for the go forward. So I'd like to acknowledge and thank staff. I mean, I know that that's only one part of a substantial piece of work that you've been involved in, but it's tremendous to see this this result. So thank you very much.
So I'll pass that on.
Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed. What? I thought we had a mover and a seconder. We had James and Jake, didn't we? Oh, was that the previous
That was the last one, but you can if you want. I don't mind.
Sorry. Are James and Jake happy to... Yeah, James and Jake are happy to move and second it. Right. Thank you. That's
No
carried.
iron team.
Council-controlled organisation final statements of intent.
Is someone going to talk to this?
We're just literally receiving the statements of intent, and we've noted all the conflicts for the various people that sit on these. I'm happy to move. Oh, can I on this? Yes. Yes, I can move all of them. Oh, you can't move. Who's else is
No, I think
conflicted?
Leanne's saying like we're everyone's sort of got things noted in there, but it's a statement of intent, so they're noted.
Yes, I know, but the thing is that it would be better to have somebody who's not on any of these. So Pauline or Aaron. So it's been moved by me, seconded by Aaron. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Is CCHL here? I'd like to move that Sam takes the chair for the next item, and then to move into PX, etc. Seconded by Tim Scandrett. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. That was good. So just for everyone else's sake, that's we won't be coming back and dealing with any of the other on public items. We will be dealing with those. So at the end of this PX session, I will come back into the main meeting and adjourn the meeting until Wednesday next week, so you won't miss anything. But everyone has to leave now. Thank you. You don't have to leave until after the CCHL presentation. Yeah. Sorry. Are they here? Right. Yeah, I won't go. I'll just adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes so that they can get here.
Was it? Right, we might get started, everyone. Mike, we might get started. Stay there if you want, but we might get started. Yeah. Cool. Welcome along, Tony and Jeremy. Do you want to run through? I understand you've got a bit of a presentation, and then we'll take questions, and then we've obviously got another item with you and PX, so we'll do this and then that. So.
Great. All right.
I'll just go straight into it.
Can I move the slide here, or do you have to do that for me? I can.
You should be able to do it at your end, hopefully.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so CCHL's SOI and those of the subsidiaries have been prepared in accordance with the Local Government Act, noting that LPC is governed by the Port Companies Act and Orion is governed by the Energy Companies Act. All feedback from the draft SOIs has been included in the final SOIs. Given that the draft SOIs were presented in detail to Council in April, this presentation will focus at a high level on forecasts at a group and parent level across the SOI period. Okay, so for the group metrics, FY21 NPAT includes 35 million of investment property revaluations, which are not included in the forecast NPAT numbers, noting that all forecasts exclude investment property revaluations. If we adjusted for that, normalised NPAT in FY21 would be 58 million, in line with forecast FY22 NPAT. Movements in profits across the SOI period is largely driven by Orion's default price path, anticipated future regulatory changes that will impact Enable, improved forecasts from LPC as a result of pricing efficiencies, higher net interest expense across the group as a result of global economic conditions and rising interest rates, and particularly a slower than expected recovery for the airport from the ongoing impacts of COVID, with a notable uplift now in forecast in FY25. Parent metrics are largely in line with the draft SOI, with the exception of profits in FY22 and FY23 due to the delay of the final Orion dividend payment of 14 million from FY22 into FY23. As previously mentioned, Orion's dividends are impacted by the transfer of the final FY22 dividend of 14 million from FY22 to FY23, in line with what was done in FY21 and 22, which means that the catch-up happens in FY23 when 3 dividends are received as opposed to 2. In FY21, the airport was not in a position to pay a dividend due to COVID-related impacts. However, Enable paid its first dividend of 18 million and RBL Property paid a special dividend of 17 million. The airport managed to pay a 5 million dividend in FY22 and is expected to return closer to pre-COVID levels from FY25 onwards. Enable and LPC show consistent dividend growth across the SOI period, and Citycare dividends are reflective of continuing pressure on margins, particularly around inflation and labour shortages. In recent years, dividends to council have been impacted by the capital release and balancing the need to pay dividends while managing debt, which is reflected in FY21 and FY22, although FY21 dividends are inflated by the 17 million RBL Property special dividend. Dividends throughout the SOI period are forecast to be in line with council's long-term plan and represent an average payout ratio of 76%. That concludes the presentation. We can now open up for any questions.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions for the Jeremy, is there anything you wanted to add as chair?
No, I think that summarises it. You've seen some of it before, so happy with that. Thank you.
Great. Okay, they are really useful to have in the public domain so people can
Absolutely.
have a look too.
Yeah.
Any questions from anybody? Yanni?
Yeah, thanks. Are you able to give us any sense of, I mean, it's a common thing that we've requested through the draft SOI process, and the letters of expectation is around what's happening with senior executive remuneration restraint.
Yep, so all of those have been, will be reported in the annual reports this year and have been included as a commitment in the SOIs.
Right. Are you able to tell us what the trend has been?
No.
We don't have that yet, so they'll be first reported in the annual reports in FY22.
So when will those annual reports be made available?
Some will be available in August and some will be later in September.
Okay. And just wanted to check around sort of, you've got obviously enable, I don't know if you're able to give us any more detail, 2.6. I guess I was just concerned that enable seems to be very active in advertising, and I just wondered, in terms of working with enable, how you're just looking at them, if they're reducing their dividend forecasts, are they also looking at to reduce expenditure? And if so, how are they doing that?
Well, the dividend forecast is more around in line with their projected NPAT. It's lower than was previously forecast in last year's SOI, and enable are looking at where they can look at opportunities to improve that going forward.
Right. But given our current climate, is anyone looking at reducing expenditure?
All of the subsidiaries are looking at reducing expenditure. It's something they do regardless of the current climate.
Right. And just a final question from me, and I think I've asked this previously, but I thought there was work happening. But is CCHL doing any sort of strategic property review across all of our companies to work out the best synergy around capital development, property holdings?
In terms of the group?
Yeah, right across the group. I mean, they're still owned and developed and strategically managed by each of the individual subsidiaries. We have a lot of collaboration between the subsidiaries and looking at where there might be touch points that they can work together. And then at a strategic level, as part of what the council is asking us to look at, we look at our overall group holdings of all of our assets at a strategic level. So it's the touch point is probably through CCHL, but the subsidiaries don't actually get together and work on those things as a group.
Okay. Jimmy's got a question.
Regarding your metrics, the table, the key performance, the first one, CCHL, the group, I'm not sure how where this figure come from, like net profit after tax. We compare the financial year 2023 and 24. If 24 last year, your figure 98, where this figure come from?
That'll be in last year's SOI. So for last year's SOI included forecasts for 22, 23, 24, and that's where those numbers have come from.
Yeah, if that's true, but if your forecast 21, 2023, the figure is less, why you can become a 98? I no any idea. For instance, like a financial year last year should be financial year 2024. Last year is 2023. Then the figure 68. Where is the figure 98?
Yeah, so a lot of that is due to the impacts of COVID and the delay of the airport and their recovery.
I think it just picking up, if I understand it correctly, if you look at the column FY24,
yeah,
where it says last year,
it's 98. Yeah,
that is the figure
yes,
that was in when we presented last year for what we thought would be earned in 2024.
Or still the same year, or 1 year beforehand, your forecast.
That's right. It was last year's forecast of what we thought would be earned in 2024.
Okay.
And this year, we're saying it's 94 million, not 98 million.
Yeah. If that's true, what's the difference between the forecast last year and the draft SOI? What's the difference? Definition.
Yeah, so a lot of that is driven by the airport. So their recovery from the impacts of COVID is expected to be slower.
Yeah. Okay,
Great,
so actually this one is a combine all your the individual group, accessory group.
Yeah, that's right. But then if you look at FY25,
Yes.
Between the draft and the final SOI,
Yes.
that uplift of 12 million
Yes.
is largely due to the airport. It's just that
Okay.
their recovery is taking longer.
Yes.
But when it happens, it's going to be better than they had previously expected when they did their draft SOI, even back 3 or 4 months ago.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to move this. Are you looking to second it, Aaron?
Yeah, happy to second. I just had one small question. It might not even be relevant, but is the recent court decision around the water bottling plants and their consents. If obviously the protest group is that they don't bottle water here anymore, and that all goes out by Littleton, have Littleton Port Company considered what that loss of revenue would be if we no longer export those units?
Don't have that information to hand.
Right,
but
they haven't sent through anything saying, oh, if this goes this way.
No, I would suspect it's not material, but I can find out.
Yeah, it would be good.
Or
good to
it
know.
hasn't been baked into any the figures, but we haven't had any changes to their SOI plans off the back of that.
No.
Because if there's lots of water going out, then there's lots of freight going through the port. If there's not much going out, immaterial won't really matter. But
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got
We can
so we've
look
got that
into
moved
that.
and seconded. Any discussion? We'll put that to the vote. All in favour say aye. Against? It's carried. Great, thank you very much. Do you both stay for the next item, which is in public excluded?
Thanks.
So we'll just, if David can bring up the resolution around.
Sorry.
No, I think it'll be okay for.
Yeah. Can I just have my vote recorded against Sam? Against
yeah,
the-
sure.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, Yanni voted against that resolution. Yeah. Great, so I'm happy to move that we go into public excluded. Pauline's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried, thank you. We'll just turn the camera.